Hello everyone, welcome to GPVWC. This is the 2022 Formula Sprint 1 Championship finale here at the Autódromo José Carlos Pate in Sao Paulo, Brazil, better known as Interlagos, which is one of the best Grand Prix circuits on the calendar according to pretty much everyone you ask. Fantastic place for a championship finale. Unfortunately, we don't have a fight for the championship today. That was already wrapped up at the last round. It went the way of Tom Stevens, and of course Nocturne Sim Racing have also wrapped up the team's championship. But that's okay, we still have a fair deal to race for here today. Third in the championship is still up for grabs, and of course we also have the bragging rights of the individual races, and two races are coming up today. As always, race 1, 35 laps there, race 2, 24 laps with a partially reversed grid. Joining me today is not the usual Ross McIntyre, because he was commentating FS2 the other day. He's done a little switcheroo, so I have got you today, Tom. How are you doing? This is Tom Dillon, by the way.
Well, you say, based on everyone you ask, I thought I absolutely despise Interlagos, but no, I'm joking. No, I'm joking. It's one of the better tracks on the F1 calendar, and it's always great to see it in GPVWC. Of course, we don't go to Abu Dhabi after this, as Formula One would. We stay with our season finished, and we get a nice long winter break. But see Owen McGouge actually in the early stages of qualifying, going purple in the first sector. This is one of those circuits that always has incredible racing, and even if the championship is already wrapped up, I think both championships wrapped up as well, as you mentioned, it still should be a spectacular race, particularly in these cars around a slipstream heavy circuit like this.
You had me for a minute there, Tom. I was wondering what you had against Interlagos, but yeah, you're absolutely right. Fantastic circuit. One of the best things about this track is the way that different sectors of the road interact with each other. What you're about to see here is Owen McGorgy heading up the hill towards the start-finish line to complete the first flying lap of the session, and you can see that about here you get a DRS zone, and that flows rather nicely into a left-right-left of the first few corners that just invites drivers to go side by side with each other. And then you get another DRS zone for any kind of slingshot effects that can be gained from that, followed by a double left-hander where overtaking is very possible. It's a fantastically set up first sequence of corners and straights on this circuit, and provides for some good racing. Here's Mateusz Dymek. He is a brand new driver to GPWC, I believe. I don't think he's done any rounds of this season just yet, so welcome in. And he's replacing Rafał Lukaszewski, I believe, who has picked up too many penalty points and won't be here today. Also, another name I don't recognise is Christoph. I'm going to say Christoph. Okay, Szymon, would you like to let me know how to pronounce that name there? One of the PB racing drivers. I believe it's a Polish name. Krzysztof Picikolon? Something like that? Close enough. Okay, thank you very much, Szymon Frelik. I'm so sorry. I should have practiced that before the stream, but honestly, I think he's actually only joined in at the start of quali here, so rather throwing us both in the deep end here, Tom, is the brand new driver there for PB Racing. Krzysztof
Picikolon, I think. Picikolon, maybe.
Anyway, there's Jake Dennehan. Jake Dennehan, racing for TTS Racing, is very welcome here. Of course, he missed the last round of this championship, which is a big shame because he was technically still in contention for it. As a result, has lost the opportunity to make this a championship decider. Although with his attendance today, he is likely to climb third in the championship, which I think is the position that he very much deserves. So Jake starts his first qualifying lap. At the end of the first few qualifying laps, his teammate, Tom Stevens, his rival Tom Stevens there in Nocturne, is top of the times, less than a tenth of a second ahead of Owen McGorgy, Benestanian Karash, Loic Munier, and Amari Watson, the top five. Quite spread out from second back to fifth right now, Tom, but look at the top two, very close.
Absolutely incredible, this league, when you have two drivers separated by 400ths of a second. I imagine in the next 10 minutes that will start to come down and that gap will extend. However, Stevens and McGarry, the two title protagonists, really. Of course, Stevens wrapping it up in the previous round, but still battling right to the end. And I think McGarry here, I think he'd like a race with, wouldn't he, just to cap off the season, at least in race one. Maybe sour the blow of losing the championship. But what can Dillon do? Looks like he's going to go into third. So the top three is as they are in the championship as well.
Indeed. So into the last 10 minutes of qualifying, we're about a third of the way through it, just over that now. And look how close the times are now, with McGorgy second and Dennehan third. There's about 1,000th of a second between the two of them right now. And McGorgy's improving, actually.
Oh, no.
McGorgy's first sector was purple. You say, oh no, Tom. Oh, Tom Stevens has stopped somewhere. Oh, has his car died then? What? He's had a crash.
And that means he can't continue qualifying, if I'm not mistaken, because the escape rule is that once you escape from track, you are after qualifying. There's Loic Mounier joining that same fate. Perhaps he's going to keep this particular car going on this occasion. However, that is not ideal for Tom Stevens, who now has got to, as I understand it, run with his 113.
And Tom Stevens is breaking that rule right now. He has escaped back to the pits and is going back out onto the track again. I don't mean to sound like I am some kind of snitch or whatever, but I'm afraid he is breaking the rules right now, so hopefully does not improve on that lap. Of course, he could still take pole position, because if no one else can improve on their times, then he still has the top position right now. And but yes, he's crashed out there somewhere on the road. We saw the rear wing lying by the side of the car, and that looked to be down at turn 4 as well, which is not a usual place to crash. He's obviously, I mean, something's gone very wrong through there. It's quite impressive to find your way that far off the road. But anyway, Philip Koenig there, P13 at present. I'm just having a look back to what happened to Tom Stevens. There's some really nasty curbs on the outside of that corner there. They kind of act as a bit of a rail slide and force you to stay out wide. And then he got on the grass. There's a little strip of grass there, which caused the car to snap and spin, and he went backwards into the wall heavily and lost his rear wing. Of course, it may just be that he's feeling that because he's wrapped up the championship already, he doesn't really have to worry about any penalties or anything like that. They will carry over to next season, so if I was him, I probably would back out of it right now.
Here's his argument then, as Josh Downers says in chat, he's doing SL2 next year, so the grid penalty probably doesn't matter. I can tell you the escape rule is definitely a thing. It was in the race director's notes for Mexico, so I'm surprised that it's actually a thing that goes into the next round, and not just something that the race director can say, look, it's clearly happened back at the grid, because that's how I read that particular race director note, is that it will lead to the back of the grid penalty. I thought that would just presumably refer to this round.
Well, they can never kind of do it. Sorry, Owen McGorgy here about to improve, so I'll finish that point in a second after we watch what Owen McGorgy's doing. But yes, that's a really good point, that Tom Stevens here, because he's not going to be doing Formula Sprint 1 again, it actually doesn't matter that he's going to get a penalty here, because he's simply never going to serve it. Across the line he goes, and he does improve on his lap. That's very naughty there. Tom should not be out on the road right now. Anyway, nothing personal, of course. I don't have anything against Tom being on the track full stop, but after you've had a crash, you've got to stay in the pits and accept your fate. But anyway, obviously deciding against it. Moritz Kropp now, Tom's teammate for the Nocturne team, around the final corner of this particular lap. Looks to be a decent one, goes up to P7. Moritz Kropp looking competitive once again. Moritz, one of the drivers who was possibly one of the strongest at the start of this season, took a couple of wins in the early part of the season. Dropped off a little after that. I think he said he hasn't had quite enough time to practice recently, but obviously still has it in him. Manu Clant, P10, moves up. And Jake Dennehan takes provisional pole position by 100th of a second. So Jake Dennehan with a 1:13.529 takes the P1 spot going into the final 5 minutes of qualifying, Tom.
Yep, good to see Dennehan on pole position. It's still as close to top 3, separated by 1/10 of a second. Of course, Tom Stevens being ever so slightly naughty with his lap. Here's Frank Hamming for HGP Motorsport trying to head through the final corner. This won't be pole position, needless to say. It will be an improvement on his lap, though, looking to jump up from 20th and going round the final corner now. It's Interlagos, completely flat out this particular section. And essentially straight. We see plenty of toe battles down here. What's it going to be? It's going to be a jump up to 9th. That's a very, very impressive lap, actually. And whenever you're in the top 10, you're in with a chance, aren't you?
Absolutely you are. And of course, like you said, that's important for race 2. But we have race 1 coming up first, so that's what they're all aiming for. Mirko Lucchini across the line, currently P15. Look to, yes, I thought he backed off on the straight a little bit. That may have just been the camera angle. Certainly didn't look to be going full speed, but still goes P9. So within half a second of the leaders. I think it was probably just the camera angle. He looks absolutely fine right now. Damien Kardash up into the top 5. And now we're in the stage where the drivers are going to be setting up for their final qualifying runs, which will decide their grid positions, their grid order. Owen McGorgy here improving. McGorgy coming up to the line, and it's a big lap from Owen McGorgy. The top 3 now separated by 300ths of a second, but Owen goes to the top of the times. 1:13.510. Who is it going to be? McGorgy, Dennehan, Stevens, or someone completely different? We've still got Stephen Lexo in contention. Oh, Kardash has a spin. That's going to ruin the lap that he is currently on. So Kardash not able to go quicker with this one. And still we've got some drivers yet to set a lap as well. Fabian Ballet yet to set a time, although he is out on track now. And he's just started his first flying lap. And then, of course, Pietzi Kolan is, he's back in the pits after being out on track. So hopefully he hasn't crashed, but may well have done, as we've seen a couple of drivers doing already. Late stage of this qualifying session now, under 3 minutes to go. Plenty of cars in the pits, and I'm expecting the pit exit to get very, very busy in just a few seconds.
Yeah, everyone's starting to go out onto those final laps. Here's Fabian Ballet for the TX3 team, trying to head through there. You can run onto the curb on the left-hand side around that circuit. They've said in the race director notes it's when you put a wheel or more than 2 wheels off, and that is Fabian Ballet into the wall, and that's a pretty dramatic crash. He's going to have to really speed up getting round here, because it's not going to be easy to get back round this circuit for another lap, particularly without a rear wing.
He might just manage it.
Final run. He will be very close. He's got to get back and out onto the circuit with probably about 1 minute and 20 seconds to go, so he's got best part of 20 seconds to do this.
Indeed. Anyway, the leading few drivers yet to emerge onto the track. Oh, here comes Jake Dennehan. So Dennehan out onto the road, and Tom Stevens back out onto the road again, like it or hate it. Moritz Kropp goes up into P5 right now. Moritz there, under 3/10 off the leaders now, has a bit of a spin, so he is not going to be improving anymore. But P5 would still be very, very welcome for Moritz. So we've got 2 Nocturnes up there, 2 TSUS offs up there, although a Nova Sim Racing car, Owen McGorgy, blocking them all from pole position right now as we speak. Let's take a look. Oh, okay, so here's Federico Russo heading up the hill. He's currently P12 and looks to be about the same as his current best lap across the line. P10, so he does improve there by a couple of tenths of a second. Moves onto the front 5 rows of this grid. Under a minute to go in this qualifying session just now. Moritz Kropp in the pits, so like I said, no improvements from him. And Jake Dennehan about to start his final flying lap, as is Owen McGorgy in the battle for pole position. Top.
Well, don't write off Stephen Lexo either. He's on a lap at the moment and he's green in Sector 1. He's 6,000th of a second off of pole position and through Sector 2. Uses all the curb as he sets himself up for one of the hairpins at this circuit. So many hairpins in Sector 2. Lexo is really could be a dark horse for pole position here. Racing in place of Andre in the TCS 56. Now heading through Sector 2, the end of Sector 2. Checker flag starts to fly. Can Stephen Lexo get himself onto pole position? Here is the question. He's purple in Sector 2. He's got a real chance here.
Yeah, Lexo purple in Sector 2, also Magorgi purple in Sector 1, but we'll watch this lap to its completion first. His first sector was only 6,000ths off his best, so he barely lost any time whatsoever. This is going to be a big lap for Stephen Lexo. Across the line, oh, it's an improvement. Oh, and he's 0.5 of a second off pole. You don't get much closer than that, and somehow he's still only 4th. Here comes Denahan. He's down, so I don't think Denahan's going to improve. Stevens and Magorgi both look set to improve. I think they're both going to outqualify Jake Denahan in the late stages here. Stevens' second sector wasn't great. Denahan across the line, no improvement. Loses out by once again less than 0.5 of a second. Tom Stevens approaches the line as well. Does he go pole? Oh, he doesn't. It's so close, but he doesn't. And Owen Magorgi takes pole position by 1/10 of a second. It's a 1:13.406. And that will be it for the session. No other drivers looking like they're challenging for pole. Magorgi takes it right at the dead there by just 1/10 of a second, Tom.
And incredibly, 1/10 of a second seems like 10 seconds in that qualifying session. And even Denahan, who wasn't improving, he was still in a chance there because he was only 6,000th of a second down on pole position. But here are the classifications for qualifying. Owen Magorgi takes pole position for Nova Sim Racing. Jake Denahan in second, only by 1/10 of a second. Tom Stevens starts third, with Stephen Lexo qualifying in fourth. Then it's Mortis Kopp in fifth, Damien Cardas in sixth, Amari Watson in seventh, Loic Munya in eighth, with Marco Lucchini in ninth. Mirko Lucchini, I should say, I apologise. Then it's Alexander Ragosa in 10th position for Gallery 82 Motorsport. Then it's Federico Russo in 11th. Frank Hamming starts in 12th, with Philip Koenig in 13th, and it's Matus Zibunski in 14th, Kasper Mikulach in 15th, and Menoklon starts 16th for Malta 4th, and it's Stavros Muzaidis in 17th, with Matus Timek in 18th, George Whitehouse starts 19th, and Luca Thylin in 20th.
Indeed, got a few difficult names on this one. I'm quite dreading the driver in 28th. But anyway, Adrian Faber 21st there, Vincent Gutt 22nd, Roy Siffert 23rd, and then it's Dylan Tarberton, Remco de Joux, Perseus Miram, Fabian Ballet, and Krzysztof Pietikolan there for the PB Racing squad. Ballet and Pietikolan failing to set qualifying times for whatever reason. In terms of penalties for this round, we have a couple potentially. Actually, never mind. The only penalties hanging over any drivers are for Rafał Lukaszewski, who is not here today due to reaching 0 license points, so he will not be racing today or in any round of the Career Ladder Series. So it looks as if the positions you saw there at the end of the qualifying times were the positions that they are all going to start in. We now have a warm-up session. It's going to be about 10 minutes, and after that we will get going for the first of 2 races. And since I'm being joined by you today, Tom, I'm not going to skip the warm-up session. We can keep going.
Well, I'd rather we did, to be honest, because my dinner's just been ready, so I'd quite like to have a chance to eat that.
Okay, quick break then.
Thank you.
Let's join us back in about 10 minutes, and we can get going for race 1. See you then.
Sorry, I'm only just...
Hello everyone and welcome back to Interlagos for the final round of the 2022 GPVWC Formula Sprint 1 Championship, the third tier of GPVWC competition. We are getting ready for the first of two races here today. It's a 35 lap race with a mandatory pit stop. So all of the drivers in the top 10 are going to have to start on the tyres that they qualified on. Everyone outside of that gets free choice, but whatever way you are going to have to pit and use the other compound of dry tyre at some point during the competition. I should correct something I said during qualifying. I said that no one who's actually here has a penalty, although that's not technically true. Loic Mounier has a 10-place grid penalty for an incident with Lukashevsky in the last race, so he will start 10 places lower than he qualified, but we will update you on all of that when we go through the grid order in a few minutes' time. In terms of the championship, since we didn't run through that in quali or warm-up, that has already been wrapped up. Tom Stevens has wrapped up the Drivers' Championship, and Nocturne have wrapped up the Teams' Championship. McGorgy has also wrapped up second in the Drivers' Championship, so unfortunately we don't even have the fight for second to look forward to. But third is still up for grabs. That is between Jake Dennehan and Frank Hamming here today, so those two will be going at it for third place. Jake Dennehan with a 42-point advantage is most likely to take that in the first of the two races. Amari Watson is fifth in the championship, Moritz Kropp is sixth, and then it's Darius Andre, Alexander Ragosa, Damien Kardash, and Mateusz Ziebinski, the rest of the top 10. And in terms of teams, as I said, Nocturne have wrapped up the team's championship. Second is between TCS Off Racing and HGP Motorsports, and then it's Nova Sim Racing and Gallery 82 Motorsport, the top 5 in the championship. We have a grid of 28 cars today, a very sizable grid, which is always good to see. That's 8 more than we get in a Grand Prix, of course, and plenty enough to make for an interesting race. And we're about to get underway for the formation lap, so we'll be able to take you through the grid order for this race and show you how they line up in their entirety. Here we go then, as we watch Johan McGorgy heading into turn 1. He will start from pole position today alongside Jake Dennehan. Then it's Tom Stevens third, the champion of this season. Stephen Lexo is fourth, standing in for Darius Andre in that TCS Off Racing car. Moritz Kropp, P5, good qualifying for him. Then Damien Kardash, Amari Watson, and Mirko Lucchini. Further down in the top 10, we have Alexander Ragosa and Federico Rosso, then Frank Hamming, Philip Koenig in P12. Mateusz Ziebinski, P13, then it's Kasper Michalak, Menno Klont, and Stavros Mazidis. I was briefly kicked out of the server, so I'm just going to be a little distracted trying to get myself back in, but that is okay.
I can move through the rest.
It's okay, we've got Mateusz Dymek there, 17th in the Smile Power car. Loic Mounier, P18, after his 10th-place grid drop. Then George Whitehouse and Luca Thielen. Adrian Faber, Vincent Gutt, Royce Seifert, and Dillon Tarberton. And then the 4 remaining cars on the grid will be Remco de Joux, Perseus Miram, and Fabian Ballet. And actually, we've lost Krzysztof Pietikolan, so only 27 drivers here today, as Pietikolan failed to set a qualifying time and has obviously decided not to start this race for whatever reason, or has had a technical issue or something like that. But anyway, still 27 drivers, Tom, and I'm looking forward to the start of this one. How about you?
I'm just hoping everyone gets through turn 1 cleanly, because it's very difficult. Here are the tyres, by the way. Only a few starters on the hards. Going to be interesting to see their progress throughout the race, particularly towards the end of it, of course, when they're especially faster, and maybe they'll be even faster as the fuelos potentially comes off the car. Of course, they'll be refueling at the pit stops, I imagine, as well. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, of course. But everyone just rounding the final corner now, getting ready for this one. I think it's crucial here for Magauji to get a good start, to break that DRS as early as possible, as is always the order of the day when starting on pole.
Philip Koenig, the top driver on hard tyres, so keep an eye out for his progress, especially after the pit stages, because that is when the ultimate strategy will start to go into play. 5 red lights, and when they go out, we'll be underway for 35 laps, and it's go at Interlagos. Away we go towards turn 1. Dennehan, little touch with Tom Stevens already. Stevens moving over. There's a bit of an incident further back. Big incident further back. So plenty of cars, I'm afraid, missing wings already. Up in front, McGorky leads, followed by Dennehan and Stevens. So Dennehan has managed to maintain third position, and Lexo still there in fourth. In fact, the top 5 is completely unchanged. Frank Hamming now into, and I think I saw another crash at the back of the order. So plenty. Even more cars involved in accidents today. Remco de Joux is a tripod right now. He's only got 3 wheels on his wagon, so I'm afraid he will be our first retirement. Federico Rosso is involved. He hasn't got any wings left. Philip Koenig's missing a wing. Perseus Miram, Vincent Gutt. Yeah, plenty of drivers involved. Big shame to see such an unclean first lap. And it's all started even before they reached the first corner. McGorky leads the end of the first lap, and he's already building out almost a second lead over Jake Dennehan. But here comes the slipstream, Tom.
A good start from most people in the top 10, of course. I think frustration at the back certainly now. A few cars being dropped out of the order. Didn't realise I had a mute hotkey, but apparently I do. So Remco does the first official retirement from the race. Here's a move. Jake Dennehan's going to be overtaken down into turn 1. It's Tom Stevens trying to muscle his way through. They make contact and just about squeezing through is Tom Stevens. That was a very needlessly difficult move, but just about able to get through, and then further battles at the rear of the field.
Indeed, and Dennehan not able to come back at Tom Stevens, so Stevens does have that second position. Cars into the pits at the end of the first lap, plenty of them, only 22 cars staying out there of the 27 starters. There was another yellow flag briefly as the drivers made their way back into the pit lane, and I'm afraid Build Sim have both of their cars involved. They're stacking up in the pit lane here. Now here's a replay. Can we spot from that what actually happened? I think we'll need to reverse again, but Philip Koenig appears to be one of the first cars involved in it, along with one of the Santon cars maybe. We're going to get a closer look. Here's Loic Mounier, who seems to have got through, and it was Russo making contact with Koenig. No real blame on either of the drivers from that angle. It's very difficult to see which of them actually caused that, if it was indeed to be put on either of them. Here's Remco de Jeux. He had a crash. Let's see what happened. Got over the curb. I think he's going to get tangled up with someone, forced onto the grass, and a big impact into the wall. The biggest crash that we've seen so far. The race continues. Hamming now up into 9th place. He's managed to pass Mirko Lucchini on that lap, and Lexo's just lost 2 places somehow. So Lexo down into 6th place now. Moritz Kropp up into 4th, and Damien Kardash up into P5. And from this lap, the DRS will be enabled, Tom.
Yes, I think that crash is one that would certainly bring out a red flag in real life. Very scary indeed. As for the turn 1 incident, here is a move. Actually, George Whitehouse getting all tangled up, just about able to keep it on the road. He's being attacked by Loic Mounier, stays 15th position at the moment. But back to the crash, I think it's very much a Silverstone-esque incident, wasn't it? Like it was in the real world this year. It was one of those where just everyone getting tangled up with each other off of the start line. As you mentioned, I think you hit the nail on the head. No real blame in that situation, just an unfortunate incident, as I believe I stand corrected. Oh no, Remco is out the race, but so is Fabien Ballet now at this stage. A disappointing qualifying for him, and unfortunately a disappointing race 1 as well.
Indeed, right. Tom Stevens still in the DRS of Owen McGorgy. They've both broken clear of Jake Dennehan now, who is in his own fight with Moritz Kropp. This is the best that I've seen Moritz Kropp racing in a while, as well as Damien Kardash behind him, looking super competitive and not letting him get away. More slipstreaming further down the pack. These are for the last few points paying positions. Roy Seafoot with a little bit of a twitch, and under pressure from Dillon Tarberton in the Virtual Drivers by TX3 car. And down into the corner, Amari Watson taking a look at Stephen Lexo, who seems to be dropping back still in this race. Moritz Kropp's move on Stephen, quite impressive actually. I just took a look back at it. It was around the outside in the braking zone for turn 1. Not entirely sure where Kardash got through, but both of those guys on a very good race so far. And Kardash actually with the fastest lap of anyone in this race. Tom Stevens briefly got within half a second of Owen McGorgy in that second sector there. He's getting closer, and these two, who were championship rivals this whole way through, who have had their incidents and their clashes and disagreements throughout this year, are now once again going to do battle. Of course, without the added pressure of the FS1 Championship, but they do have the pressure of this particular race. Tom Stevens down the inside, and a good move there. And McGorky takes a look, but it looks as if Tom Stevens has got that wrapped up. There's another DRS zone coming up straight away. McGorky gets the DRS flap open, maybe about to do him again. Here he goes to the outside. McGorky with the braking, brakes later, and moves over the curb. There's enough room for the both of them. Tom Stevens takes the lead. Great stuff.
Yep, wonderful move. That's exactly how you do it. But here goes Magauchi trying to get back into the lead. Couldn't quite find his way around the outside, and that is a slight track limits violation as well, if I'm not mistaken. I think if you touch a wheel onto the curb there, you are technically, off of the curb I should say, you are technically in violation of those track limits, but I think he'll get away with that somehow, given the nature of battling for the lead. But anyway, Whitehouse, his teammate, is still trying to make a move into 14th position. On Zubinski won't come easily for him, particularly with the DRS train starting to come into effect. These cars produce a fair bit of dirty air as well. Not a great deal, but just enough that it sort of upsets you through the corners, I'd suspect. I haven't driven too much of these cars myself this year, but that's what it looks like from the outside looking in. 30 laps remaining. Magauji just slowly trying to keep up with Tom Stevens here.
Indeed, it's worth noting that track limits are actually quite lenient here. The other day in the Formula Sprint 2 race, as Mateusz Jubinski, touches! And that's with George Whitehouse there, but just about gets away with it. But yeah, the other day in FS2, I didn't get a single track cut in either of the two races, as Amari Watson goes up the inside of Stephen Lexo. I was avoiding the curbs like the plague, because they're very unsettling here at the circuit, but it's good to know, whoa, as Jubinski has a little incident once again with George Whitehouse, and Loic Mounier gets a little tangled up as well and is lucky to keep his wings attached. Tom Stevens now appears to have broken the DRS of Owen McGaughey. He's got a full second ahead of the Nova Sim Racing car now, and actually Jake Dennehan is back within DRS range of Owen. So Owen not only has lost out on the lead here, but he's lost out on a chance of the lead in the next few straights here. Maybe a bit of a sitting duck before long. Moritz Kropp coming too, Damien Kardash coming too. Moritz Kropp hasn't got the DRS now, so Jake Dennehan has just put the pedal down, and there you saw the collision between Zubinski, Whitehouse and Mounier once again on replay. Alexander Ragosa around the outside of Stephen Lexo, and another good move into turn 1. That's going to be a real action spot today. Jake Dennehan right on the back of McGaughey. Take a look at that. Ooh, very close. And that could be a move before long, as Lexo once again comes back at Ragosa, and Ragosa maintains 7th position and touches the wheel on the grass, but still maintains the position.
I just wanted to clarify something that I said, by the way. I got it slightly wrong. The race director note said that you must keep 2 wheels on the stripe curb heading into turn 7, so he wasn't actually in violation of track limits there. Magauji, he just had it absolutely nailed on. Here's Jake Dennehan now actually trying to catch up to Magauji. Magauji clearly struggling at this stage, perhaps something to do with tyre wear, or could even just be better pace from the guys behind. But Dennehan now is into that DRS range and got a real chance of attacking him into turn 1. This is where Magauji has to start thinking about how he's going to play the pit stops here to give himself that advantage. Do you come in a lap early, knowing that you're perhaps struggling on this particular stint, as you see Dennehan with incredible closing speed, or do you just copy the guys ahead and just pray that you've got better pace on the harder tyres?
By the way, it's worth noting that after Koenig got involved in the incidents in the first few laps, the top driver on the hard tyres is Stavros Mercedes in 16th. And that lap, oh my goodness, Owen McGaughey was very defensive from Jake Dennehan behind. Tried to break the toe from very early on the straight. He's clearly under pressure here, and he knows it. The body language of the car telling 1,000 words there as Mirko Lucchini passes Frank Hamming for 9th position. So Hamming losing a place there to the Alpha Delta Racing car in the lower positions of the top 10. Here's a replay now. This is Frank Hamming's move, or his loss of a place. We're a little late on that replay, but that is okay.
And thank you, by the way, for Josh Downey in chat, who says Owen is driving injured at the moment, unfortunately. Big cramps in his legs. I've driven with cramps before. It's not very easy, and certainly offers an explanation for what is going on here with his pace. There's Frank Hamming going, taking the Max Verstappen Lewis Hamilton line through that corner, and not ideal at all. That's turn 3, isn't it, down there? Here's Dennehan now chasing the injured Magauji as Ragosa goes down the inside as well.
And Lucchini gets Lexo, so Lucchini up into P8 here. He's on a bit of a charge. He did start 8th, so he must have lost a few places at the start of the race, but he's back into 8th position now as Dennehan takes a look at McGaughey. You say that the cramps explain Owen McGaughey's pace, but if you look at McGaughey's last few laps, they've still been pretty darn good. Yes, okay, they're nowhere near as quick as what he set on his second lap through, but then again, he had the DRS then. And at this point in the race, he's still running in 2nd position and still not dropping back too far from Tom Stevens. lap times are very comparable to Tom Stevens's up in front. It really, I mean, if his cramps are bad cramps, then he's just fighting through the pain right now, and clearly still doing a good job of it. Here we go again, onto the straight. Jake Dennehan with the DRS this time, and this is going to be very difficult to fend off because Dennehan is even closer than he has been in the last few laps. And this is a move in the making. Jake Dennehan to the inside, and he gets it before the end of the braking zone, before the apex. And now Magorki, as Kardash gets up into 4th position, but sorry, I'm watching on Magorki here because he's going to have the DRS on the exit, such as the nature of this first sector of corners. Magorki coming back now at Jake Dennehan up the inside, and he goes through into 2nd position. So Magorki does maintain 2nd, and actually Dennehan touched him on the exit of the corner there with the switchback. And Kardash behind was able to fend off Moritz Kropp, so Kropp was not able to come back with the 2nd DRS zone. There is George Whitehouse on Kasper Michalak up into Ferradura. But yes, the main move on that lap was Owen Magorki fending off Jake Dennehan as Kardash behind took 4th.
Well, I think Magauji's going to have to get out the yoga mat in the warm-up session here, Caitlin, because cramps are not easy for another 35 laps and a race too. Here's something that happened to Matthews. D-Meg just locked up the rears and went round at turn 7, I think that is, and that can be quite a precarious rejoin as well. Does very well to check his delta. As we see the first pit stops, and it's Magauji and Dennehan are almost collecting each other into the pits. This is going to be very close indeed. Dennehan could get the jump here.
Yeah, Magorki was a lot more cautious on the brakes into the pits than Dennehan was, and I'm very, very glad that they didn't end up running into each other because that would have been embarrassing. Kasper Michalak up the inside there of Adrian Faber for P9, and he might lose out to George Whitehouse here because he hasn't got a good run out of the corner. Magorki maintains his position ahead of Jake Dennehan on the pit exit, and Whitehouse is not letting me look away from this fight that's going on for P10 right now. There is Owen Magorki ahead of Jake Dennehan. So Tom Stevens still leads the race. It's now Kardash in 2nd and Ragosa in 3rd. A good position for the Gallery 82 cars, albeit temporarily, as their pit stops won't be too far down the road. Yellow flags out there somewhere. Michalak has been off the road. So Michalak, who was in that fight there, has presumably had contact or maybe just overshot it, trying to maintain that position. Does Tom Stevens come into the pits in recognition of the cars behind him this time around? They try to cover off the undercut. There he is. So Stevens comes in, puts on the brakes. It's a difficult pit entry. And behind him, Lucchini is about to line up a move on Amari Watson.
Here he goes around the outside. This should be a fairly easy move in the context of the race. Down into turn 1 and won't be fought either. You don't want to be losing time when the guys behind you have started to pit. In fact, you want to have as much clean air as possible. There's Stevens out of the pits. We're going to keep an eye on Dennehan and Magauji to see if he's going to be able to maintain his lead. It would be something quite special if Magauji was able to overtake him. As Stevens out of the pits now. Magauji still going through turn 1 and turn 2. I think Stevens is just about, well, actually not just about, he's going to hold on to this quite comprehensively, and there's even a little bit of traffic in between the two of them as well. So Stevens now in the driving seat to win this race.
And that traffic is Dillon Tarberton, who's on the same lap as them. So yes, Stevens has managed to put a car between the two cars and extend his advantage during the pit stages. Now here's what happened to Michalak. I saw him briefly off the road just now. He was fighting with George Whitehouse, and I do hope that no one made contact here as, and actually it was completely by himself there. Michalak overshooting it on the exit of the corner. And I think I saw someone else go veering off a little bit in the background. I think that may have been Loic Mounier having an incident of his own. So unfortunately a couple of drivers caught out in that one. Mateusz Jabinski has just become a retirement. Now here you look at Mirko Lucchini up the inside of Alexander Ragosa through into 2nd. Meanwhile, Damien Kardash has temporarily taken the lead of the race due to the pit window, and will have his time in the sun. Ziabinski, by the way, hasn't had an accident or anything. Looks as if he's just come into the pits and called it a day. And Ragosa coming straight back past Mirko Lucchini to once again make it a Gallery 82 Motorsport 1-2 at the final round of this championship. Adrian Faber on the back of Stavros Musaidis. and still the top driver on hard tyres is Stavros Musadis, because Tom Stevens hasn't come through yet. What's happened here? Tarberton's had a spin or something.
Yes, he's fallen down the order a little bit, isn't he? I think he's just about got going. Again, we've got the replay for you to see what happened to Dillon Tarberton down into turn 3. Presumably just gets all crossed up. I think he touched the grass on the way in, but it's on the exit that he has the problem. Just bottoms out on that curb, and that is a dramatic crash, actually. Lucky that he didn't even lose his front wing. That was a huge contact.
Yeah, who was that coming through? That was Moritz Kropp nearly wiped out, so luckily no actual contact there. And Denahan and Amari Watson's in the pits now, sorry. But yes, Denahan and Kropp very close on track. Kropp coming to the outside now, having a move, and he flies past Jake Denahan on the straight. Good move from Moritz Kropp. And Denahan couldn't have fought that if he tried, really, because he didn't even have his car alongside on as they turned in for the apex. Moritz Kropp getting the move done. Denahan with the DRS is not able to come back on the exit. That is a move for position there, which may end up being the fight for third in this race, as they only have Owen McGorgy and Tom Stevens ahead of them in the net order. Damien Kardash leads this race overall for the time being. Lucchini and Ragosa have been having a ding-dong battle behind him. About 4 seconds behind him as it is, and this bunch of cars are all set to make their pit stops in due time. Tom Stevens, meanwhile, absolutely flying, has set the fastest lap of the race after his outlap. Fresh tyres, lower fuel than he was on before, of course, as well. He's about to pass Adrian Faber with the DRS, and maybe about to go even faster as a result if he wasn't held up too much in the middle sector. And Stevens puts a car between him and Owen McGorgy once again. And the gap between the two is about 3 seconds potentially, so it's pretty much doubled since before the pit stops here.
As from what I can see on the standings, this would be the first podium for Moritz Kropp since all the way back in Hungary weeks and weeks ago now. So very excited for him, the fact that he's managed to get past Jake Dennerny. He's not the easiest to pass. Dennerny's a very good driver as a whole, never mind defensively. Here's Tom Stevens on board with him, trying to attack Musadis just ahead of him. Stevens is on a quietly decent drive. Well, not a quietly decent drive. He's, of course, leading the race on a net basis. And I think here the traffic is going to be a little bit frustrating to him, and he'll be hoping for as little resistance as possible.
A little bit, but it'll be okay, because there's a straight coming up now with a DRS zone. Musadis won't put up too much of a fight. He knows that they're on very different strategies here and not competitive with each other for position in this race. And Stevens with the DRS open now will go through. Meanwhile, Ragosa and Hamming are in the pits, as is Menno Klont, so that has put Stevens up 4 places, and he's only had to pass one of those on track. Stevens up into P4 in this race now. Kardash leads, followed by Lucchini and then Lexo, the top 3. And there are the 3 drivers who have just peeled off into the pit lane in this race, for getting their fresh, hard tyres. A bit close on pit exit, but they will be okay. And Amari Watson fights with Dymac there, one of the new drivers. I was actually just getting the site up to check if Dymac has raced with us before in the Academy series or anything like that, but I'll get... Oh, look at that! That was very close there, 3 wide, as there's a car coming out on pit exit. Dymac makes contact. They're going to spin here and around, and that was Amari Watson who's gone all the way around in that one. And that did not look like Amari Watson's fault, I'm afraid to say. But it was a very difficult one, because they found themselves 3 wide with a car suddenly coming out of the pits just in front of them. And Dymac did well not to lock wheels with, I think it would have been Ragosa there, who, yes, so Ragosa comes out to the left. Dymac, oh my goodness, and Watson there threading the needle. But there is the contact, and Watson was the driver who lost out there. Meanwhile, Lexo and Lucchini both in the pits.
Yeah, I just get the sense that someone's got to back out there, to be honest, with that third car involved. Obviously, the third car did back out, didn't want anything to do with that, but you just think that a little bit too aggressive at this stage in the race. You've still got plenty of time to go. It's not the most important move to make, and just turned in, didn't he, really, on the outside. And that's a frustrating way to not end your first race in GPVWC, at least in FS1, but a frustrating way to at least put yourself back down the order, out of a very good position as well.
Indeed, there's Lucchini once again with Ragosa. These two, not even that little scrap could separate these two, as Frank Hamming gets between them now. So Hamming does what that instant couldn't and separates the two battling drivers. This is indeed Matthias Dimek's first race in this category and in GPVWC as a whole. I've just looked him up on the site. Absolutely no results. He is brand spanking new. So welcome in, Matthias Dimek, and hopefully he's enjoying his first round in GPVWC, even if there are a few incidents going on and it's not going quite his way. Magorgi now is going to get past Mercedes as well, so there he goes up into third position. Damien Kardash staying up very late on those soft tyres. You'd expect him to be on hards or something, but he's just staying out there super late. So interesting strategy here for Damien Kardash. And it shows us that Stavros Mercedes can presumably stay out for and he's coming back here at Magorgi, but yes, Mercedes can stay out for basically as long as he likes, but until he makes his pit stop. Mercedes is really challenging on Magorgi in this race, not willing to let him get away at this point in time, which is interesting since they are on such different strategies. The gap for the lead, the net lead rather, between Stevens and Magorgi has come out to about 4.5 seconds, which is also about what Kardash has over Tom Stevens now. Kardash surely will have to pit.
He's dialing to the outside, by the way. In the meantime, on Torberton, he's going to go down into that turn 3, and that is about as easy a move as they come, and able to get the car stopped as well. We've only just about hit half distance in this race, as we see now leader into the pits. Of course, relinquishing that lead now is Kardas, but looking for a really rocketing second stint now, able to do half the race on soft tyres, obviously going to put on the hard tyres towards the end, and Kardas now has got fresh tyres that shouldn't really fall off a cliff towards the end of the race.
Mercedes also came in on those hard tyres, so Kardash did just as long on the soft tyres as the other drivers could do on the hards. And actually comes out P5. Kardash has, he was about there before this whole thing started, but honestly, I was expecting him to lose places out of all of this. He's lost about maybe 10 seconds to Jake Dennehan up in front, but yes, he's got plenty of time over the cars behind him. There's actually quite a big gap here from Kardash down to the next car he's racing in the net order behind him. Alexander Ragosa being a little held up by Roy Seifert, who's yet to stop. So I think that ultimately Kardash has put himself in quite a comfortable position in there with that stint. Very, very well done.
Well, exactly, and this is the thing as well. Now he's got the tyres to fight Jet Dennehan a little bit later on into the race. And while he's lost 10 seconds immediately, the question is now, can he get that 10 seconds back? He's got 16 laps to do so. So you say you doubt it, but if he's able to gain 5-10 a second a lap, it's going to be close, particularly if Dennehan starts to have a little bit of tyre wear problem. Here's a move for 6th position in the race. I believe it's going to be Ragosa down the inside on Roy Seifert, able to do it perfectly. And now Seifert going to find himself under a little bit of pressure from Frank Hamming as well, but I think this is going to be one that's waiting for the DRS. Both drivers getting DRS, but Hamming looking like he might just have the better straight line speed, pokes his nose down the inside into turn 3, brakes so late in order to get that move. That was really, really quite a nice move, and there's someone almost losing the car, trying to defend the inside.
Oh dear, and they do lose it, and there's a big collision there on the exit of turn 4, and that was between Adrian Faber and Kasper Michalak out of all of that. Presumably on different strategies or whatever, but coming together somehow on the road, and then coming together physically as well. Not good to see in a race like this. Meanwhile, Tom Stevens 6 seconds ahead of Owen McGorky in this race. That's a big gap, as they are now once again first and second in this race, or its crop is third. And the reason I say I don't think that Kardash is going to be able to catch Dennehan is because they're on even tyres now in terms of the compound. And Dennehan was slightly quicker before the whole pit sequence, as Lucchini fights with Lexo. He's up the inside. Oh, and they both pass Siffert, or they both catch Siffert in the braking zone. And through goes Lucchini. Good driving from Lucchini there, actually. He read that one very well. But anyway, yes. Of course, Kardash does have newer tyres than Dennehan, but I don't think that's going to make up enough of a difference to put them together on track once again. We'll see though, still plenty of time to go, and who's to say that traffic and mistakes or whatever are not going to play a big part in this race, especially in the latter stages of the first race here. So, we're over half the way in now. The pit window is drawing to a close. Still, we've got some of the hard tyre runners out there yet to make their first stop, but or their only stop in terms of stops that they have scheduled. But and it says McGorky and Crop are in the pits. What's going on here?
They go to a 2-stop.
I was not expecting that at all.
We didn't pick that up. They went to soft. That is an interesting strategy, and now Magauji has got essentially it's all to do towards the end of this race. He hasn't thrown away the race victory. This was obviously the strategy, but he's going to I'm sorry, he wasn't leave the race. That's my mistake.
Tom,
difficult to keep up with everything.
Tom Stevens is also on soft tyres here. Goodness me, why didn't we pick this up? I am so sorry, guys. That is one of the biggest blunders that I've had all season, not seeing this. But yes, Stevens is still on soft tyres, and so were McGorky and Crop. So they've both come in for their second stops of today now. And in a race where drivers could do the entire thing, or half the race on soft tyres, as demonstrated by Damien Kardash, I was not expecting anything other than the most straightforward, as Tom Stevens comes in, the most straightforward of one-stop strategies here. I wasn't even considering that they might have double...
Is Dennehan's going to respond?
But what's Dennehan doing? Because he was on hard tyres. Surely he could have gone to the end.
No, here's what's happened then. I think either the fuel that they put in wasn't enough to the end and they wanted to run lighter. They don't, okay, so fair enough. So maybe Dennehan now thinks that the tyre advantage is going to be too great, and he sees his best opportunity here, not having the track position, but having the tyre advantage of going back onto the soft tyres. As here goes Kopp down the inside, as finally a little bit of action in a race that has suddenly flipped on its head. And now Kardas, who perhaps doesn't have to pit again, is suddenly going to be fancying his chances at an unlikely race win, but he's got a much better tyre, better tyre favourable to Stevens. That made absolutely zero sense at all, but I don't think anything in this race is making sense at this stage. But Stevens, you can apply all the points I made about Magauji to Stevens now, as he's almost all but thrown away the race win. He's got it all to do.
No. Stevens still has the advantage here. Stevens is only 2 seconds behind Damien Kardash as a result of That's why this is making more sense now. That's why Kardash's stint earlier on cost him about 10 seconds, but he still seemed to be in a comfortable position. Tom Stevens now only 2 seconds behind Damien Kardash after that stint on much fresher tyres, and a more of an incentive to go to the end as well. Here comes Owen McGorgy now behind Stephen Lexo, so McGorky's going to go for it on the straight. Lexo himself has DRS from Lucchini. They're going to go 3 wide down towards turn 1, and it's Lexo who takes advantage, and McGorky's going to get very sideways, runs over the curb and off the road, and Lucchini now goes to the outside. He'll get the DRS, and they're both going to get the DRS from the back of Stephen Lexo's car. Down towards turn 4 they go, and a big run from McGorky, who once again slightly misjudges it, runs a little wide and loses some time there. Stephen Lexo maintains that 5th position. So yes, Tom Stevens still has the advantage in this race. It still looks like he might well win it. He is going to have to pass Kardash on the road though, which is going to be tricky. It's between Kardash and Stevens. at this point in time. But I have to admit, guys, I completely misread this race, and for that I am very sorry, because I have not done that at any point in this season with Formula Sprint 1. But this race suddenly completely changed from what I was expecting, and I hope you'll understand, because that was not how Formula Sprint 1 races usually go.
No, I mean, I was talking to Kate in the green room about the pit stop strategy, because my first Formula Sprint 1 event of the year, and it was all pretty much, we were expecting a standard one stop here.
McGorky got Lexo for P5. There he goes, P5.
There we go. That's encouraging stuff from Magauji. But I think the thing is here, we were expecting such a simple one-stop with the soft to hard tyres, or medium tyres, technically speaking. But
sorry,
it's so...
Watch Hamming. Hamming's about to get third, I think. Oh, very nearly. Has to back off to avoid running into the back of Alexander Ragosa. There's another fight that could go to the end here, and that has suddenly sprung up on us. Ragosa also on a one-stop strategy, quite clearly. And he's managed to jump a bunch of these drivers. Oren McGorgy's got it all to do here. He is now he's within a second of Frank Hamming, so he is catching here. But he's got a couple of cars to pass before he gets back into the podium positions. Stevens now within DRS range of Damien Kalash, so Stevens going for the lead. He's got 10 laps to do it. I don't think there's anything Damien Kalash can do to hold back Tom Stevens here. Stevens is flying. Of course, still has the fastest lap of this race, but yeah. Also, another thing to note: it's not even an easy two-stop in terms of soft, hard, soft, because Stevens has gone for another set of hard. He's gone for a set of hard tyres, so he went soft, hard in this race, rather. I'm really confused right now. Kardash now passes Crops. Denahan passes Crop down for P8 there, down into turn 1, so he makes up a position. Mercedes passes Klont now for P10, he gets that position, and Denahan sets fastest lap in the process, so he now claims a point for that. This is quite a race, Tom.
Don't they have to use two compounds, though, throughout the course of the race? So that would explain why he's gone from soft to the medium, technically speaking. I believe it technically called the medium, but it's a harder compound of tyre is the point. And I think here as we see a replay of what's happened with Magauji by the looks of it, trying to make a move for third position, get himself back onto the podium. I'm still a little bit baffled here, and I wouldn't write off Damien Kardas here. I think there's a real opportunity, but this was a spin, presumably not a spin, but an opportunistic move from Owen Magauji. He wasn't going to let up on that opportunity with his opponent going wide and able to sneak his way through. But Stevens, here he goes for the lead of the race.
And up the inside, through he goes. Tom Stevens takes the lead back with 8 laps remaining. I knew he still had the advantage, but and McGorgy gets third. Look, McGorgy gets third away from Alexander Ragosa into the corner. Lexo also on Hamming. It's all changed in pretty much every battle in the order right now. So it's Stevens leading from Kardash, McGorgy, Ragosa, Lexo, Hamming, Denahan, Lucchini, Crop and Mercedes. That's the top 10 right now, and it's a completely different top 10 than what it looked like it was going to be about 10 laps ago. Now I think the story as... Who was that? Someone just changed positions there. I think Moritz and Lucchini maybe? Anyway, something happened further back, but yes, okay, the story of the rest of the race now is what Owen McGorgy can do. He's going to be charging to try to catch up to Damien Kardash, who is on older, hard tyres. Also, you've got, I'm afraid, it looks as if it looks as if Denahan and Crop have been really held up in this one and aren't coming through the field as quickly as Stevens or McGorgy has. But
Crop made a huge mistake almost, and that's going to allow Lucchini to have a little bit of a look at him. You'd think it was just a bit of an oversteer moment. But one point I did want to make, Caitlin, here was the fact that R-Factor 2 is very weird in the fact that there's no punctures. So technically speaking, you can nurse tyres home. It won't be a nice experience and you'll lose a lot of time, but at least, you can just take the lack of grip and you can just power on through it. So that's one thing that does open up a few strategies here, and maybe the tyre degradation is just that bad. But here's Dillon up into 6th position, trying to make a move on Hamming down into turn 3, able to get the position nice and easily. Jake Dillon himself will feel like he's missed out with this strategy on a podium, but that's back to my point. I think really that's why we're seeing the 2-stop here. Maybe the degradation is just that bad for some of the guys at the front, and the rest of them, as there's a car around, but everyone else is Cardas. It's Cardas out of 3rd position into the grass, I should say, and I think he's going to struggle to get this one back around. There's someone in the background as well. It's the 2 teammates, I think.
It is, and that was Ragosa. So both of the Gallery 82 Motorsport cars suddenly in a lot of trouble. Is that related, maybe? Well, here's Damien Kardash. It looks as if he was really struggling to get the car back on the road for some reason. He's still struggling as he... Well, what happened there?
Well, that was just a case of a little bit of oversteer, wasn't it? And here's Ragosa, but they did make contact, the 2 teammates, and that was just so needlessly... Well, needless. It was avoidable. He's rejoined in what I have to say is a rather silly manner, if I'm allowed to judge. And the teammates, they should be talking to each other there. They really need to be talking to each other. I think it's just the way you've got to say there. You're not in the same race as each other, really. However, as teammates, you've got to be having a conversation and say, look, I've spun around, just be aware.
And Kardash is out of the race. Ragosa back into the pits now with heavy damage. Yeah, Kardash was really struggling to get it back to the pits. I was noticing that. And it was potentially hardware issues or something like that. That would make sense. It looked weird. Now here's Moritz Kropp. Oh, good dive bomb maneuver there up the inside of Frank Hamming. If he pulls that one off, which he does, yes, that's the move of the race so far. Very well done. The only trouble is that now there's the DRS straight coming up immediately after this next corner, so he's going to be once again under pressure from Hamming, and that big twitch is not going to help. He may have just thrown it away again. Watch Frank Hamming, who will have the overspeed. There's yellow flags out there somewhere. Please, not more of this. More drama taking place somewhere. Hamming with the overspeed, with the DRS, goes to the inside line, and Kropp fights it. I was expecting him to potentially back off and go for it in the second DRS zone. And who's going to get the DRS here? Because they're going to be side by side across the activation point. And here they go down the straight. Hamming reclaims it with the DRS and gets that 5th position away. A little bit outclassed Kropp throughout that sector. Just seemed to outrace him, position his car a little better. And he gets 5th position now, which Kropp just took away from him.
Race has suddenly divulged into absolute chaos, and it's wonderful to watch. We always get chaos in GPVWC, don't we, at the last race of the season. Was it 2020 or 2021 where Super League had that insane Interlagos race? That was unbelievable. It was last year, was it? And that was incredible. This is really, really unbelievable stuff. It's gone from interesting tyre strategy, as Neil's Demon said in the chat. We need to talk about that. And I think the 2 teammates are going to be talking about that for a very long time if it is hardware issues, and of course just one of those things. But here's Kropp trying to make a move into 5th position on Hamming down the inside, and that again is a pretty easy move. The DRS is so powerful around this circuit, and not going to miss out on that move any day of the week.
One of the reasons DRS is so powerful here is because it's actually quite a... Hamming taking another look at Moritz Kropp there, but does have to settle the P6. But yes, the reason the DRS is so effective here is because there are quite a few slower parts of this course, so drivers do tend to run slightly higher wings than you'd expect for a track with this many straights, and as a result they are running quite high downforce comparatively, and it means that the DRS removes more of that downforce and creates an even bigger reprieve from the drag you'd otherwise get. A little bit of grass being kicked up by Moritz Kropp. The car seeming a little unsteady actually through that corner.
This is another thing.
P5.
This is another thing that isn't present in the F1. Not the F1 game. This is the R Factor 2, but it's another thing that isn't present in sim racing as much as it is in real life is the air density. It's of course a little bit thinner at Interlagos due to it being the second highest track in terms of altitude on the F1 calendar, and our calendar as well by extension of that. So it's more prominent at Mexico, but also sort of a factor at Interlagos compared to some more regular tracks, but not present in the game, so they can afford, or they produce more downforce from the higher wings than they would in the real world.
There you see the positions the drivers have gained or lost. Looks as if Roy Seifert there may be the biggest winner of this race so far, up in level positions from his starting place. And of course he was on a slightly alternate strategy, starting on the harder compound tyre and avoiding the collisions at the start, crucially. So Seifert gaining positions out of all of that. Adrian Faber just up in front, also gaining places, and he's going to be challenging for that final spot in the top 10, which is crucially important for two reasons. First of all, you get more points for a top 10 finish, and second of all, you get a chance to be on the reverse grid pole, because unlike in Formula Sprint 2, it's not the top 15 that could be reversed, it's only the top 10. So he's got to push for that position in order to potentially get reverse grid pole. Here's McGorgy there. McGorgy gaining some time on Jake Dennehan, pulling away as behind we have McGorgy, Moritz Krop, Menu Klont, for a third try lucky, going around the outside of Stavros Muzeidis into turn 1 and getting P8 now. Just 3 laps remaining, including the lap that we are on now, so 2.5 laps remaining pretty much. And it looks as if Tom Stevens has done enough now. Second place may still be up for grabs, although there is over a second between the two of them. The top fight that's looking imminent here is Krop versus Hamming versus Lucchini. All 3 of those drivers fighting for 5th position in this race. And this is one of Mirko Lucchini's best races in GPVWC to this date as well. So even if he's not able to finish in the top 5, I'm still interested to see what he can do in race 2. Goodness, it looks very bumpy in that third sector there. I'm noticing the cars getting all sorts of out of shape in all of those corners at the bottom of the hill. First of all, you have the run down to the penultimate corner, and then of course you have that 90-degree left-hander themselves. The car's twitching and twirling through all of those, and then of course through turn 1, as you just saw from Jake Dennehan's view. So this track a lot bumpier than I remembered it, but the driver's dealing with it. There's Loic Mounier, who had a few incidents earlier on, I'm afraid to say, on the back of Dymek. Mateusz Dymek in his first GPWC outing, and looks to be about to make a move maybe.
He is going to make a move, and he's going to have the DRS to help him as well. This is going to be so easy. Look at the top speed of that Multiforce GP car, and he's going to make a hash of it almost, but just about squeezes through does Loic Mounier. That was not as, well, it's far more difficult than you would have expected, would have liked for himself, and now that might just allow the car behind a little bit of a look down into turn 3, maybe down the inside. This is going to be so close. They make contact. You can see that coming, and well, Mounier goes round as well into the wall, and it's more incidents, and he's out of the race.
Didn't those two make contact at that corner earlier on as well? Well, whatever the case, I'm afraid, yeah, that will end the day for Loic Mounier. On to the final lap we go now with Tom Stevens. He's driven a fantastic race. We're going to see a replay of some not so fantastic racing here. And this is what befell Loic Mounier. Dymek with the DRS got closer and closer. And that's... yeah, wow, it's interesting how much of a difference in speed there was between the two at that point. It looked as if there was going to be no chance that Dymek was going to go through. And then Mounier was so slow into the corner. Dymek was like, well, might as well go for it. And then there was a bit of a miscommunication as to which lines they were taking, and they ended up colliding. So unfortunate there for Loic Mounier, but unusual circumstances. Meanwhile, Tom Stevens has done everything that he needs to. He's already won the championship. It was slightly naughty from him in qualifying, but that is a discussion for another day. In the race, he has not really put a foot wrong, and he's going to win it by 7 seconds in the end. Tom Stevens there with the bragging rights, which he already had from the championship. Owen McGorky is going to be second, And the top 3 are the same as they were in the championship. Jake Dennehan will be 3rd in the championship now. He's locked into that position. Stephen Lexo 4th there in the race, so TCS off get their cars 3rd and 4th, not bad from them. Moritz Kropp claims P5, and then, oh, that's close further back, but yes, it was Hamming 6th, Lucchini 7th, Clont 8th, then Musadis and Watson, who you just saw crossing the line pretty much side by side. Adrian Faber P11, Roy Seifert P12. Matthias Dymek, P13, will score a point or a couple of points on his GPVWC debut. Not bad. There were a couple of incidents, so I'm wondering whether there's potentially going to be a bit of a question mark over that. And Mikulak might keep him honest to the line here, actually. Oh, that was close, but Dymek did manage to keep the position over his Smile Power Racing teammate. George Whitehouse will claim the final point, as there are some rather clumsy donuts going on with drivers bumping off each other down in turn 4. There's front wings lying about there somewhere, with the TCS off car missing that whip, and even more contact going on. I've seen much cleaner donuts than that in my time. Tom Stevens winning this race from Owen McGorgy and Jake Dennehan. The top 3 in the race are the top 3 in the championship, showing you that the drivers deserve their respective positions. Missing out on the points at the end were Philip Koenig, Alexander Ragosa, Lucas Thylan, Vincent Gutt, Dylan Talbotton, Federico Rosso, Loic Meunier, and Persis Miram. And the not classified will be Damien Kardash, Mateusz Szybiński, Fabian Valle, Remco de Joux, and the driver who failed to start this race, Krzysztof Pieter-Kolan. Anyway, good stuff there. What do you make of that, Tom? A very unpredictable race.
Still surprised about the 2-stop, to be honest, and I'm starting to question whether they're going to get the 24 laps at the second race in without a pit stop. As well, you'd hope that they would, wouldn't you? But you never know with these guys. But a great drive from Tom Stevens, that's for certain. And well, I think that we can't complain about that. 2 stops and he's won.
Absolutely. So we will be back in a few minutes' time for race 2. We will have a short break before that for the second warm-up session. But yes, don't go anywhere, because we have even more of that to come, and it's going to be just as exciting. Don't go anywhere. Hello everyone and welcome back to Interlagos for the final round and the final race of the 2022 Formula Sprint 1 Championship from GPVWC. Very, very sad. Unfortunately, like I said before, both championships have been wrapped up and now the top 3 drivers in the Drivers' Championship are also confirmed. So unfortunately, we don't really have that much to race for in terms of championship implications, but that is okay because race 1 still caught us off guard, still gave us lots to talk about. And race 2 as well. I'm predicting the unpredictable here. There were drivers doing 2 stops in race 1. There were also drivers doing half the race on one set of soft tyres. So a 1-stop strategy, absolutely doable, probably preferable. A 2-stop strategy, also absolutely doable. Tom Stevens will probably try it. We will have to see. We've got 24 laps ahead of us. That is, it's doable on the hard tyres for sure. Whether it's quicker on the hard tyres or the soft tyres is yet to be seen. And then, of course, you have the other complication, which is the other drivers around you and the overtakes that you're going to have to pull. But yeah, that's what makes race 2 here at GPVWC interesting. It reminds me of race 2 at Mexico just 2 weeks ago. And also the Hungaroring earlier this year, where we saw a mix of 1-stop and 2-stop strategies in race 1, and then 0-stop and 1-stop strategies in race 2. We're getting ready for the start of this race now. 1 minute until the formation lap. Tom, now we've had time to reflect on race 1. What are you looking forward to seeing here in the second?
Well, we were talking about this in the green room, the fact that it's the last race of the season. Some people who are starting, 22nd might just be thinking, oh, I can't really be bothered for 24 laps. But you said, actually, some people are going to be really up for this race. And I want to see someone who perhaps doesn't see themselves as in contention for this race. I'd love to see when the championship is all but wrapped up. There's still moves for 8th position in the championship. It's still up for grabs in terms of the team, 7th, I should say, with PZZW and Alpha Delta both having a battle. But I'd love to see these drivers say, you know what, forget it. I'm just going to throw caution to the wind and I'm just going to absolutely go for this race. And if that requires doing 24 laps on a set of soft tyres, then I'm going to do 24 laps on a set of soft tyres, because who is going to stop me? But I want to keep an eye as well on Stavros on pole position, the Valet Esports driver. I think is everyone actually starting on the soft tyres. I can tell you that much. But I'd love to see Valet get a win here as a team that I'm I have been in the past somewhat affiliated with. They haven't won a race this season. It would be nice. I've seen their plans for next year as well, Caitlin. I think it would be very interesting if they could top off this season with a victory as they head into what I think is going to be a big year for them in 2023.
Okay, well, we'll talk about that in a bit, but let's take a look at the starting order for this race. The reverse grid position has been drawn as position 9. So Stavros Musadis, who finished 9th in race 1, will start 1st in race 2. And alongside him will be Menno Klont. Then it's Mirko Lucchini, Frank Hamming, P4. And P5 will be Moritz Kropp. Then it's Stephen Lexo, Jake Dennehan, and Owen McGorky. And of course, that means that our race 1 winner and champion of 2022, Tom Stevens, will have to start 9th position in his final Formula Sprint 1 race before he moves it up in 2023. Then it's Amari Watson, Adrian Faber, and Roy Seifert. Watson, unfortunately, the only driver who could have benefited from the reverse grid and didn't. Smile Power have both their cars 13th and 14th with Dymek ahead of Mikulak, and then it's Whitehouse and Koenig. Then Ragosa, Gutt, Tarberton, and Russo rounding out the rest of the top 20. And following them, we have Loic Mounier, Persis Miram, and Damien Kardash. And unfortunately, only 23 cars started this one, rather than the 27 cars that started race 1 and the 28 cars that were here in qualifying. It's a bit of a shame, but it seems a lot of the drivers have just decided that it's not worth going out for the final race of the season. I personally don't understand that. I would be feeling like I was missing out, but anyway. And there you see the true tyre compounds. What you saw at the start of the formation lap was the tyres just loading, so they hadn't yet determined what tyres they were on. But here we go, Musadis, Klont, Lucchini, Hamming all starting on hards. They will presumably go the full distance. Kropp Denahan, McGorgy presumably will make a pit stop. Stevens, I thought, was going to make a pit stop, so watch that space. Adrian Faber also on the soft tyres, as are a few drivers further back. A mix of strategies, just as we had in race 1. Ignore the fact the tyres just changed colour. The graphic is a lot more reliable than what you're seeing right now. And when the lights go out, we'll be underway for 24 laps and go. Here we go. Once again at Interlagos. It's a decent start from Stavros Muzeidis, who's going to cover off Menno Klont into turn 1. So Muzeidis leads. Behind them, Lucchini maintains third position. There was a little bit of contact at the back. I think everyone's got through a bit cleaner than in race 1. I think they've all got their wings about them still. Like Mounier, the driver who ran off through the escape road. Now, down the straight we go. There's, and a little move, little jink out from Jake Denahan, taking a look at Moritz Krop to try to pass the other driver on soft tyres. Yellow flags out there somewhere, so something's happened further down the order. Muzeidis continuing to lead from Klont and Hamming, and it looks as if Alexander Ragosa was affected in all of that, because he has now dropped to the very back of the order for whatever reason. There's Jake Denahan. More yellow flags, unfortunately. You never like to see that on the first lap of the race. Perseus Miram has now dropped to the back as well. George Whitehouse dropping down to 21st position. A few drivers affected in minor ways, but up in front it's still Muzeidis, followed by Klont, Hamming, Krop, Lugini, etc. And Tom, we have a long race ahead of us, considering that this is a second race of the day. Jake Denahan passing Mirko Lucchini. Lucchini being a bit swamped here. McGorgy going through as well. McGorgy taking a look for 5th place, and Moritz Krop gets 3rd. Krop passing Hamming for 3rd. Yes, like I was saying, a long race ahead of us, but I think here that this is going to be between Stavros Muzeidis, Menno Klont, Moritz Krop, and potentially also McGorgy Stevens. We'll have to keep an eye on what those guys can do.
I'm giving it on Jake Denahan as well, whether he's got a chance at this race. But I hope McGarry's had a chance to do whatever yoga or anything that he's had to do in the warm-up session. He had about 10 minutes to get that cramp sorted out. He finished on the podium in the first race, and if injured and bruised McGarry can do that in the second race, I think it would be a successful end to the season, even if the championship has evaded him this time round. However, in terms of the race, I think you've got it pretty correct in that anyone in the top 7 could go through and win this one.
Vincent Gutt has a little spin, unfortunately, so he is not going to be in contention. And Moritz Krop here is going for 2nd, and that's on Menno Klont, 2 drivers with quite similar sounding names that I sometimes get confused. Moritz going through, and he passes Menno Klont. Klont right under his gearbox, though, tucks straight back behind the car and goes to the inside and lets him go, actually. He knows that they're on different strategies here. Denahan takes 4th away from Frank Hamming as well, and they remain clean up in front. Now, can Moritz Krop catch Stavros Muzeidis? I mean, he probably will. He's on softer tyres, and it's very early on in the race. As Jake Denahan, and that was Hamming passing Klont as well, so Hamming now up into P4. Yes, Krop has got to get past Muzeidis quickly here. He's presumably on a pit stop strategy, a one-stop strategy, and McGorgy's having an accident. McGorgy has hit the wall hard there further back, and unfortunately his tremendous season is going to, well, I don't know if it's going to end in the wall, because it looks as if he's going to keep running, and I hope he does, because it's always good to see as many cars get to the checkered flag as possible. But something happened there to Owen McGorgy and put him well and truly out of contention.
Well, if he's got a direct drive wheel, then I think that cramp may have just got a little bit worse for Owen McGarry, but that is a huge accident and a disappointing way to probably not end his season, but all but end his season. Won't be points on this occasion. Here's a move for the lead of the race. The valet car is going to go and defend the inside, but we swamped by 2 of them. Denahan into 2nd position as well. Now Krop goes into the lead, and there goes Stevens defending from Menno Klont, or trying to attack Menno Klont, I should say. Well, now try and get the run out of the centre. S is down into turn 3. Denahan's going to go to the lead of the race now around the outside. Denahan into turn 3 is going to get the move before the braking zone. I said he was going to be one of the main contenders for this race, as Stevens goes to 5th position. I said Denahan was going to be one of the main contenders, and it looks like now he is in the driving seat.
All very important moves, and still it's anyone's game. Here's a replay now of the start. George Whitehouse is the car that's being focused on there, although you can see the entire grid and what befell all of them. It looked to be a pretty clean start at first. Whitehouse ran over the grass and had to take to the escape road, as did Loic Mounier, but they both resumed the race and didn't take any damage. Meanwhile, we're heading on to the start-finish straight again. I'm going to be watching the leaders just to make sure that we don't miss anything. There was a little bit of contact, hopping over the curbs, and Ragosa was ended up going for a spin. Here's Owen Magorki, who was, and this is the contact we're about to see between him and Menno Klont. He turns in for the corner. I don't think they actually did make contact. Well, Magorki was losing it even before they touched, if they did touch, and he's been into the wall pretty hard. That's very much like what Lewis Hamilton did back in qualifying in 2017. Schumacher also crashed there back in 2004, if I remember correctly. So happens to the best of drivers, and Magorki has just added himself to that list. But anyway, drops to the back of the field. 23 cars, all 23 cars still running in this race, and why not? It's the last race of the season. Philip Koenig's just been for a spin. I'm afraid he's lost his rear wing. That's why you see the yellow flags on the screen right now. So still drivers beating each other up further back for whatever reason. And this time it's Lucchini off the road. So Lucchini also running off the road from inside the top 10. He hasn't hit anything solid this time. And Faber gets up to 5th. He's passed Stevens back again.
Yes, and well, that's a little bit against the run of play. Tom Stevens would have thought that move was, well, absolutely permanent, but no, he's being overtaken once more. Here is Faber going to have to try and defend from Tom Stevens once more, but it's going to be a mammoth task with Stevens having that DRS. We see further moves at the front of the field, but Stevens going to go around the outside. This won't be as easy as he expected, actually. Faber has got a rocket ship at the back of that car and is able to hold off the world champion on this occasion. However, I think there's going to be a few more opportunities just about for Tom Stevens in this race, namely now, but also the valet car coming under pressure down into turn 3.
Oh, and round the outside, handing on Mercedes. Nicely done. Goes up into 3rd position. And now Stevens and Faber both being held up slightly by Mercedes. Now here's a replay of Philip Koenig's accident. He is now out of the race, I'm afraid to say. So our first retirement is Philip Koenig. He was to the outside there of George Whitehouse, but I don't think there was contact between the two of them. He got on the curb and around the car, looped, snapped away very quickly, and he hit the wall with the rear of the car. Now here's Mirko Lucchini, and he's going to get hit in the rear here from Kasper Michalak. There was the contact. Now Michalak's had to come into the pits because he lost his front wing. You see the front wing tray sliding away on the floor. So Michalak ran into the back of Lucchini, and both of them very badly affected, and that went off.
Yeah, really badly affected indeed, and we're showing here another move down the inside for Faber. This is how he got back past Tom Stevens, yes, and it was an aggressive move.
Faber's just gone around the outside of Mercedes too, so Faber up into 4th position on the outside of turn 1. Very nicely done. Tom Stevens is now going to have his chance on the exit of turn 3. Sorry for the interruption, but this is a very important battle in this race. Stevens up the inside. They all might get caught out by Faber, who moves over and nearly boxes them in. But through goes Tom Stevens into P5, a position that he's been trying to get for a long time. Ragosa challenging Lucchini. Both cars affected by incidents in this meeting up to this point. And something happened in the background there. Like Mounier is involved.
As I don't know what Faber's had for tea this evening, but certainly has helped him get into 4th position in this race. He's absolutely on fire. Here's what happened to Loic Mounier then, not having the greatest of race weekends, is he, as he went down into turn 7, just got caught up in someone else's accident.
There's a big twitch there from the Santon car. That would have been Federico Russo. And absolutely walloped the front of Loic Mounier's car. But anyway, so the race continues, and I'm afraid Dennehan and Kropp don't look as if they're getting away from Hamming fast enough to really worry him here. I still think that Hamming is in the best position in this race. And actually, I'd be worried about the fight between Hamming and Stevens. Now here goes Faber to the inside of Hamming. So Faber goes through. That was always going to happen. And now it's down to Hamming versus Stevens here to fight for what could potentially be the net lead, but it's so difficult to tell in this race because, I mean, like you pointed out earlier on, the first few drivers, they don't actually have to stop. They're not going to get a puncture if they stay out there. They're just going to hit some kind of cliff on the tyres and start to find their car uncontrollable. But if they can get enough of a gap that doesn't affect them, they could still win this race. It's so tricky, it really is, but Dennehan and Kropp for the time being out in front. Faber is up to third now, also on the soft tyres. The top driver on hard tyres is Frank Hamming, and in my opinion, the driver in the best position in this race right now. And he is going to be under some extreme pressure from Tom Stevens now, as Stevens goes for what might be a double victory. He goes up the inside of Frank Hamming, and Tom Stevens takes fourth position. He is now the top driver on the hard tyres, and I think the top driver in the strategically corrected results, if that's something you could say. I don't know if that made any sense to anyone, but anyway.
I got what you meant.
And he's keeping up with Adrian Faber in this one as well. Stevens having another very strong drive. Can you imagine if the champion of 2022 finished out his FS1 campaign with a double victory? Here's Lexo now on the outside of Menonplant and loses out.
Yes, and Kropp, by the way, is keeping up with Dennehan. You would have expected Jake Dennehan to just accelerate away here, but it's still well within DRS range. Is that number 41 car? Dennehan is going to have a difficult time holding on to this one, and let's keep an eye on Tom Stevens in fourth position, as you said. Has only got Faber to pass before he can start to chase after the leading pair. Here is that leading pair going round the final corner now, past the Cafe Chicane, and trying to make a move into turn one. I suspect is Kropp and might have a go at it down into turn one. And Jake Dennehan, all the slipstream, all the toe in the world, able to get around the outside. Maybe Jake Dennehan brakes really late and they make contact.
A little bit, but they're okay. Now there's going to be another DRS zone on the exit of turn 3. Kropp once again, he goes back to the outside of Jake Dennehan. They're side by side. That is a picture for the photographers. He brakes later, and through he goes, but he's going to run wide. He does run wide, goes over the curb. He does well to hang on to the car, and Jake Dennehan reclaims the lead. Very well done. Very well raced between the two of them. Behind them, Faber and Stevens are doing battle, and that was Stephen Lexer running wide and losing some places. Now weaving, Omari Watson weaving about on the straight there in ninth position, not wanting any chance of a sniff from behind. I think the most important fight here is Tom Stevens versus Adrian Faber, because Stevens has the opportunity to throw it all away here. Yellow flags once again out on track somewhere. I think it's Loic Mounier who's been involved once again. And that looks like the exit of turn 4 rather, which is where he was involved in another incident earlier on. Moritz Kropp now back in the DRS of Jake Dennehan, and into the pits comes Jake Dennehan. Moritz Kropp takes the lead of the race now, as behind him Faber and Stevens do battle. Stevens to the outside gets second position. It's a Nocturne 1-2, Tom. This is looking great for Nocturne. Tom, you're on mute.
I was talking. Anyway, I need to remember that I have got a mute hotkey now that I didn't know about. Well, Dennehan into the pits and able to get back out, and will now have to chase after. I think the race win may be away from him, depending on what the guys ahead are going to do. I should also point out that it was the first coherent sentence I've said today, and it was whilst I was on mute, so that's very frustrating indeed. But back to what I was saying, Nocturne, they'll be really happy. You want to cap out the season in such a way. They've already won the championship, and a 1-2 finish, well, it would be the cherry on the cake, particularly if it's a double for Tom Stevens. But do you see any team orders being a factor here?
No way. Absolutely no way. The championship is over. And
I mean, in terms of
Tom Stevens.
I mean, in terms of giving Kropp the win, just to round out the season.
Oh, you mean the other way?
Yes.
Okay, well, Kropp. Well, first of all, we've got to, as Adrian Faber comes into this. First of all, we've got to determine whether Kropp's going to pit or not. Presumably, he is. Otherwise, of course, I mean, yeah, definitely. I see that Stevens would try to hold up the drivers behind, as. Yes, Faber on another set of softs, I expect. But yes, presumably Tom Stevens would attempt to hold up the drivers behind. It would be an amazing way to finish the season, to have a nocturne 1-2. And Moritz is well overdue a win, and on a day like today he would deserve it as well. But we're speaking way too early. We're halfway through this race now, and Moritz Krop is yet to make his stop. Now, by staying out later than the others, he could potentially do an interesting version of the overcut by, of course, I mean, the drivers who have pitted have got fresh soft tyres now, but the thing is, their tyres might not have necessarily been up to temperature initially, and Krop's definitely are. The only difficulty with that is that Krop has pushed his tyres past the point of their usefulness. He stays out once again. I wonder if he feels especially safe here because Stevens is behind him. Maybe they are doing what you suggested, Tom, and maybe Stevens is going to attempt to help as Whitehouse and Kardashev pit. Maybe he is going to attempt to help Moritz Krop to the win here.
Well, you actually bring up the point I was about to make. As, never mind. Tom Stevens to the inside and gets the lead of the race. I was going to say that if this was my team, this isn't a situation I'm particularly, I'll let you in on a little secret, used to with my team, but, if it was me, I would be trying my best. Maybe Tom Stevens staying behind Krop, and they have that 4-second gap behind to Hamming, and almost use, sort of working together and using the tyres that are presumably able to go to the end of this race for Tom Stevens. Use him as a sort of roadblock ahead to Krop, and that would really help them out because he can defend Tom Stevens. We know that.
Indeed. Well, anyway, Stevens has already broken the DRS of Moritz Krop, and still we're waiting for Krop to make his pit stop, if indeed that is his plan. And Krop pits. He is on this lap, so Stevens stays out. And hopefully Krop didn't lose too much time giving way to Stevens there. I'm surprised that Stevens didn't just stick behind him, because he was always going to be in the strategic pole position. Whatever the case, Krop in the pits, and Denahan is going to go through, as is Federico Russo there. Krop's going to come out about P9 in this one. Actually, no, I think Faber might get him as well, because he's already up to speed here. Stevens leads the race by 5 seconds from Frank Hamming, then it's Stavros Musadis in third position. Then Watson, Lexo, Clont, Denahan, Russo, Krop and Faber. So Krop just about coming out ahead of Adrian Faber now, and he has got to absolutely fly on those soft tyres. He has the freshest soft tyres of anyone out there, and will be the fastest driver in the latter stages of the race, almost undeniably. There are the tyre compounds. You can see the soft tyres for the drivers who have pitted, the hard tyres for the drivers who haven't. It looks at this point in time as if the soft tyres haven't worked, although of course a key component of the pit stop strategy is the fact that the drivers who are on softs are going to come into play towards the end of this race, so definitely don't count anyone out yet. But it does look as if staying out was the thing to do, because Stevens leads this race by 6 seconds over Frank Hamming and 18 seconds over Jake Denahan, who is the leader of the alternate strategy. And I think that it's pretty much over without a fight here, I'm afraid to say, but still plenty of intrigue to be had.
Trying your best to commentate Curse. Tom Stevens there, but he is the champion. Well, he is the champion a round removed for a reason. Remember, 3 race wins in a row from Hungary to Belgium, then a podium and a win in Italy. Then he rounded it out with consecutive podiums ever since Japan towards the end of the season. This would be actually another 3rd race win in a row. Mexico and then the 2 Brazil races. So really, Tom Stevens has had about as strong of a second leg to this season as anyone could want. He's, frankly, unbelievable, and perhaps even a move into, I was going to say SL2 next season, but if I'm not mistaken, he's actually, did someone say that he was moving down into, no, he's doing SL2, sorry. I read that as FS2 for some reason earlier, I just had to go and check myself. But yes, it will be exciting to see what he can do in that league, but we can talk about that after this race, as he's still got a race to win here.
It's also worth noting that he can't race at this level again with the GPWC regulations. This is definitely going to be his last FS1 race, because once you win the championship, that's it. You have to compete at a higher level, of course the exception of that being Super League, because there is no higher level. And Kasper Michalak, I'm afraid, has just become our third retirement of the day, so he joins Loic Meunier and Philip Koenig and everyone who failed to start the second race on the sidelines. It looks as if he's had an accident maybe on the exit of turn 4. Actually, it's a little later in the lap. We might get a replay of that in a second. And right on cue, we're going to get that. There's Perseus Miram now, so we're looking at the wrong driver. But Michalak's move was on the exit of the last right-hander of the lap, if that means anything to anyone. I think it's known as Pico de Pato, although that may be the corner, 2 corners earlier. I should get up the track map. I really do enjoy corner names. But anyway, had a big spin, reversed it into the wall. You're about to see that. There it is. Bish, bash, bosh, and out of the race he goes. So unfortunately, 3 retirements from this race, although still 20 cars. And is that Tom Stevens in the pits? Stevens coming in. So Stevens deciding to pit from the lead, maybe just to make it more interesting for himself, who knows? Or maybe because he's built out enough of a gap and he feels he can fight for it. There's 7 laps remaining. Surely he's not going to win now. According to the screen we're looking at, he's on soft tyres, so he's going to push for it.
Well, Frank Hamming here would frankly be stupid to pit. So would everyone ahead of Stevens. They've just got to weather it out, surely, no matter what the tyre wear is. Even if you finish off with 12% on your front left, you've just got to go for it. That's what I'd be saying. Stevens is in 9th position. I don't think he's going to be able to fight. It would be a mega drive, but look at the gap to the leader. It's 15 seconds. He's going to have to gain well in excess of 2 seconds a lap in order, whilst overtaking 9 different cars. So, well, unless the tyre wear really was that bad for him, and the tyre wear's bad for everyone else, and they've got to pit again, otherwise it would be frankly unbearable to drive, then I think it's going to be difficult for Tom Stevens, frankly.
Help Moritz Kropp? I don't know. I mean, he's won the championship already. What is going on today? This is so difficult to read. It's got to be to do with the fact that it's the last race of the championship and all of the championships being wrapped up and people are getting desperate in the lower positions. Well, that's going to be an easy move there because Stevens is on softer, fresher tyres than Federico Russo, and he's also got the slipstream with DRS, so that's about as easy an overtake as he can get, with no disrespect to Federico. Now we'll have to see what he does with Moritz Kropp here. But yes, I've got absolutely no idea why he just pitted. Honestly, no idea whatsoever. So Frank Hamming leads this race now from Stavros Musadis and Amari Watson. So both HGP cars are in the top 3. And we have just a few laps to go in this race, 7 laps to go, including the one that we're on now. There's Stephen Lexo in fourth position. We have 20 cars remaining in this race. Lucky Lucchini has the fastest lap of everyone so far, if you were wondering. And as for what's going on with the Nocturne drivers, no idea.
Well, I imagine there's a few positions on the Ferrari pit wall in Formula 1 available now. I'm sure they have their reasons. I'm being very harsh for that strategy. And this is where, from the compost, you say, oh, that seems absolutely stupid. And then they go and tell you, well, actually, he was on 30% tyre wear and he was going to crash out if we didn't bring him into the pits. So I'm sure they have their reasons. But from an outside looking in, this does look a truly baffling strategy, and it would be interesting to see just what their tyre wear was. However, Stephen sets the fastest lap of the race. The point I was going to make is about Stephen Lexo in 4th position. Absolutely wonderful to see him in Formula Sprint 1. Was very competitive in FS2 all year, as Stevens getting around his teammate as well. This opportunity is Russo trying to go into 9th. Won't quite do so in the Santon, but it's wonderful to see Lexo at this level, and I'm hoping that both him and Ruven Machete can be there on a more permanent basis next season.
Quite a fight there. Faber's just got up to 9th place. Stephen Lexo was telling us after the Mexico run that he's been sim racing or doing racing games for about 20 years, which is crazy. Possibly, I can't remember the exact stat that he said. It may have been like 22 years or something. But it was a long time, and he's clearly using his experience to to keep up with the young guns who have so dominated the Formula Sprint 1 championship this year is Murray Watson as well, another very, very experienced driver, punching above the weight that he was earlier this year. I think Watson's definitely improved towards the end of his championship. Stevens is flying. He is absolutely flying out there. Within 10
That's
seconds
a really late move.
now. Oh!
It's a really late move, and you can see
Watson
that coming. And oh no, it's happened again. It's one of the backgrounders followed him into it, and is that Stephen Lexo? It is Stephen Lexo. No, it's not Lexo. I apologise. It's Menno Clont. He's followed him into the mistake. And, oh my word. Well, you could see that coming. I said that's a late move, and that's happened so often in this race. It's almost like they never learn.
So Watson goes for the move on Mercedes, and he's not really far enough alongside, is he? Anyway, Mercedes gives him a tap, and around goes Watson. Lexo avoids him, and Clont spins completely in sympathy. I think he was distracted by what was going on ahead, and just loops it around. Menno's going to be disappointed with himself. I know him well enough to know that. But yeah, so Clont's now P8 and Watson P7. So Watson did get out ahead of that. That puts Stevens back up into P5 now. Stephen Lexo is up to P3. Stevens is about to catch up to Jake Dennehan. That's going to be quite a fight to watch. Stevens very much with the advantage. And look at this, we might be about to go 3 wide into turn 1. Russell up the inside, that's Clont in the middle. We got, big collision. And around goes Faber. Faber's going to be out of the race, I think. And unfortunately, it's all getting rather silly here in the last race of the year in GPVWC Formula Sprint 2. There's Faber, who's going to struggle to get it back to the pits now. I'm not sure he knows, and he's going to pull off the road. And here's a replay of what's just taken place. This was 3 cars going into turn 2. Faber lost control and hit Menno Clont, who himself hit Federico Rosso. I'm watching the fight between Stevens and Dennehan as well. Hopefully this one goes a bit cleaner because we can't take much more of that today.
Well, as someone who's pretty familiar with the old opportunistic move, I can tell you that things like that, they seem a little bit better when you play them out in your head before making the move than when actually doing them. And the result is always going to be that. It just takes a little bit of reserve, doesn't it? And it's very difficult, but here we go.
And there's the move to the outside for Tom Stevens, and he goes through on Jake Dennehan, a driver who could potentially have kept the championship alive today if he'd been at the last round. Who knows, but it would have been quite a tough ask for him. Whatever the case, Jake Dennehan, one of the top drivers in this league. He won Formula Sprint 2 last season when it was known as Formula Challenge, and he's been in contention for this pretty much all the way through, right up until he missed the last round. There was a bit of a move further back as well. George Whitehouse has got into the top 10. Good race from George. He didn't qualify particularly well, but his second race has gone much better for him, and Kropp's crashed. Kropp is in the wall. So Moritz Kropp, I'm afraid, who was running well, has joined the DNF list. He spun off at Ferradura, I think, and completely by himself has hit the wall and ended his championship in a very sad way. Moritz is a lot better than that, and I've got to say he's been let's take a look at this first. This is Tom Stevens on Lexo. He goes to the outside. He's going to get the slipstream as well from Mercedes up in front. Stevens, I tell you what, and he's gone around the outside. Very, very well done. He's done so well to get back onto the podium in a race where I was shocked to see him pit in the first place. Faber, meanwhile, is out of the race too, so he did not manage to make it back to the pits. We have 18 cars remaining in this race now. Stevens is going to get second, I think. He's all over the back of Mercedes. I don't think Mercedes is going to be able to fight him here. He might do it into Ferradura. Well, this is where his teammate just crashed. Goes into the turn. Oh, and a big slide. Oh, and there's contact.
Oh, dear.
And a collision for Mercedes. Off the road is Stevens, but he's still got his wings. And Mercedes misses. He's missing his rear wings. So Mercedes comes off worse. Someone just ran off the road to avoid him there.
And, well, I mentioned at the start of the race about how this would be a dream end to the season for Valet, but unfortunately it's not going to be, and it's Mercedes down into 6th position after what would have been even their first podium of the year. So no doubt of frustration, but as I mentioned a little bit earlier on, as we start the final lap of the race, by the way, and Dennehan and Stevens are going to battle it out, but I think Valet will definitely have a better year next year.
And Lexo lost his front wing in that as well. It was Lexo, and up the inside on the final lap of the race goes Jake Dennehan. Gets up into 2nd place. Great move. And Stevens is possibly going to come back to him on the exit. Here we go, down towards turn 4 for the final time in this championship. Stevens on Dennehan, and he goes to the inside. Dennehan was not brave enough to cover him off, and through goes Tom Stevens. Great move there. Very, very forceful. Very nearly forced into the grass, goes back into 2nd position. Yeah, like I was saying, it was Lexo who actually knocked off the wing of Mercedes' car, no fault of his own. But let's take a look at Frank Hamming here, who's about to come into the final sector of this circuit. It's been an up and down year for Frank. He's been consistent, although hasn't quite had the outright pace to challenge for the championship. Whatever the case, he's going to thoroughly deserve this victory here today, and it's going to be quite the way to finish off the championship. It's his 3rd victory of the season, and Frank Hamming wins in Interlagos. Great stuff there for the HGP Motorsport driver who weaves and celebrates. Tom Stevens and Jake Dennehan are going to be 2nd and 3rd. Their championship, they fought hard. Amari Watson is going to claim 4th position, and then it'll be Damien Kardash 5th, Federico Rosso 6th, George Whitehouse 7th, Manu Clont 8th despite spinning twice, good recovery drive, and just taking 9th there was Mateusz Dymek. So Dymek's going to get a top 10 finish in his first GPWC outing. Great race too for Dymek there. Oh, it's going to be close with Ragosa. Ragosa slipstreaming into the line. Oh, and gets it back. So Ragosa does just about get it back there before the line by 17 thousandths of a second. Dymek still claims 10th though, and it's Vincent Gutt 11th, Dylan Talbot in 12th, Stephen Lexo 13th after pitting, Mirko Lucchini 14th, Royce Seifert 15th, and then failing to score points in that one were Perseus Merriam, Stavros Musadis, Owen McGorgy, and then of course not classified will be Moritz Kropp, Adrian Faber, Casper Nicolak, Monio, and Philip Koenig. And there's Moritz Kropp's unfortunate crash that saw him fail to score points in this race. A gutting way to end a season that looked so promising at the start. Whatever the case, Frank Hamming is the final winner of the 2022 Formula Sprint 1 season. There's the crash that saw Stavros Musadis fail to finish this race, and Stephen Lexo dropped to 13th. And here it is from an outside point of view. Now, Tom Stevens did not touch that car. It looks as if Musadis lost it completely by himself. Maybe distracted by the cars behind him. But that was no fault of Tom Stevens there. And there's the celebrations. Thank you to everyone for the racing, says the race director Chris, and I've got to echo that. And also thank you very much to the race director Chris Williamson, who has given us some wonderful action so far this year. This was all not possible without him and the rest of the GPWC crew. There you see the finishing results on your screen. A rather chaotic day here at Interlagos. I'm afraid this was not my favourite race of the season from either an on-track racing point of view or a driving standards point of view, but whatever the case, GPWC is still very much worth watching. And in a few seconds, we're going to go over to the interview room. But yes, I'm also going to say thank you very much to everyone else on the GPWC team for giving us this Formula Sprint 1 action here today. Will Panisi, of course, the mastermind behind GPWC as a whole, Chris Williamson, the race director, and everyone else involved. Let's go to the interviews now. We have Stephen Lexo in with us. Stephen, how are you?
Well, not too great after that penultimate lap.
Indeed. Well, we all saw it. Unfortunately, we've just been watching a replay of that. What happened?
Well, I guess he had a sudden loss of talent. I don't know. And with him spinning right in front of me, there was unfortunately no chance. And yeah, my front wing was not made of titanium, so yeah, unlucky.
Well, I'm afraid that pretty much sums up the day. It was quite chaotic up and down the field. But Stephen, you've had quite a season. You were competitive in Formula Sprint 2. You moved up to Formula Sprint 1 after climbing fourth in that championship. And you were very competitive today as well. I mean, even before the accident happened, it looked as if you were going to score some big points. And then after the accident happened, you still managed to finish 13th. So not a bad day all in all. What do you think?
Well, obviously it's a little disappointing. Race 1 was very tricky as I was in the one-stopper, but my soft tires died on lap 2. So yeah, I had to let everybody through as there were a lot of two-stoppers, and as soon as I went on those hard compound tires on lap 16, the car was completely different. I think the softs just completely overheated for me, even knowing I was completely babysitting them. So yeah, for race 2 then I was chilling, just keeping the temps down, keeping the percentages down. So yeah, everything was running good. You could see the result. I was having very good tires right at the end. Mercedes didn't. But yeah, would have been better to score the podium, obviously.
Fair enough. But at least you know that you deserved it. At least you know you were quick today. Yeah, thank you very much, Stephen. And Tom, do you have anything to add for our fourth place finisher in race 1, 13th in race 2?
Well, I mentioned just on the stream, Stephen. Obviously, you had a very successful year in FS2, winning the team's championship in the end, Redfen Racing, which was wonderful to see. Do you see yourself maybe either just as yourself or as a team alongside Reuven? Do you think you can make that step up to FS1 next year?
Well, we're planning to stay down in FS2 as neither Reuven or I are going to drive next year, at least as primary drivers. The team will remain in FS2. We have 2 new exciting drivers already on the way. So yeah, happy to see what's going to happen with the team in 2023.
Any clues as to who those drivers might be?
Jörn Dix and Roy Seifert.
Very nice. Thank you very much for letting us know. Thank you, Stephen, and yeah, see you whenever.
Yeah, see you next Thursday in Super League.
Indeed. Okay, so that was Stephen Lexo there. Next up, we have our race 1 winner and, of course, champion, Tom Stevens. Tom, are you there?
Hello, yes I am.
So, before we start singing your praises as always, I want to ask what happened on one specific thing. What do you think I'm going to ask you about?
I'm not sure, you tell me.
Qualifying.
Oh, yes. Yes, qualifying. Well, I just set a decent banker and then was pushing a bit too hard and sort of ditched it in the wall. But we'll just forget about that one, shall we?
And as for going back out again?
Yeah, well, I'll get a penalty for that, won't I? So I'll accept that penalty and yeah, I'll just move forwards.
But you won't serve the penalty.
Well, I'm not going to be racing FS1 next season, so it's all good. But yeah.
That's very sneaky of you, Tom. I've got to say I'm on the fence about how I feel about that one, but it's not up to me. It's not up to me whatsoever. And of course, it ended up working out for you. Okay, let's move on to race 1. Fantastic drive there. You made overtakes. You made a very unexpected 2-stop strategy. Where did that come from? Where was the idea, the inspiration to go for a 2-stopper?
Well, the main thing was just following on from Mexico because the races today had the exact same number of laps, and from some testing, I discovered that the tyre wear was relatively high, so I thought, let's just go for it. Last round of the season, let's just go for another 2-stop. I think a few other people also did as well. But yeah, it sort of played out, and the 2-stop is a more fun strategy to play with because you have more pace, you have to go for the overtakes, it's quite intense. So yeah, really enjoyed it out there today.
How about race 2? I wasn't expecting the pit stop to happen when it did. What happened there?
Well, the thought process through that was the softs, they just seemed to really, really die off after about 10 laps or so, even just before that. So to make a 24-lap race work, you'd have to make them at least like 12 laps each on the softs. So I thought, nah, I'll just stick on the hards, try and follow on the back of Owen and Jake, which I saw going on the soft, and then I'll make my pit stop and have a late charge. But yeah, it seemed like the best strategy out there in race 2 was definitely the no stop. Like Frank absolutely aced it out there. In race 2, he just avoided all the trouble and cruised home with a win. So GG to him. But yeah, I mean, the races would have been a lot harder to stay if it wasn't for my engineer today, which is actually Chris Butcher. So big thanks to him. And Moritz, he did a great job. A bit unlucky, but it's been a pleasure to be driving with you all season, and just everyone in THR. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Really enjoyed it, and let's see what's going to happen in the future.
Tom, what a season. We spoke to you about it last time out at Mexico when you won the championship, but this was a phenomenal drive. And to finish it off with a win and a second place as well is quite something, and shows just how competitive you are as a driver. Tom, that is the other Tom Dillon. Do you have anything to add for our champion and race 1 winner today?
Well, are you excited for the jump up to SL2 top next season? Give that a proper crack.
Well, I'll definitely be testing SL2 and SL1 next week, so I'll see how we get on with that. But next year, I think Toby has already revealed it, so a bit naughty for me to say if he hasn't. But I'm planning to make the move up to Super League next year. So
the full Super League. Oh, wow.
yes,
fair enough. That's a good move for you. And well, I hope you do well in that as well. We heard on the YouTube chat that you were planning on a move to SL2, but to make the jump up, I'm sure you'll do very well. So the question extends out to that then.
No, that's with THR, right? You're moving up to the main THR team.
that's the plan.
Okay, thank you very much for letting us know, Tom. And as I said before, congrats.
Thank you very much.
Okie dokie. So that was Tom Stevens there. We've got so many people waiting for the interview room today. I think well, normally we do 4, so today I'll maybe push it to 5 since it's the final final race of the championship. Let's bring in Owen McGorgy here, who was second in race 1. And I've already forgotten about race 2 because it was so long. But yeah, oh yeah, there was the incident. Owen, how are you feeling? Are you there, Owen?
Hello.
There we go. Fantastic. Owen, let's talk about race 1 first of all. Great stuff. Second place again. Race 1 pretty much represented the championship as a whole, don't you think?
Yeah, I guess. I probably had the pace to win it, but on I don't know lap the lap before Tom passed me, I had a massive cramp in my left leg, and it didn't go away until after my first pit stop. Which I just kept losing time. I think I went deep on the brakes a few times, and yeah, it was it was not fun. But I managed to keep Jake behind a bit. I can't remember if he overtook me, but yeah, the pace was strong after that at least, and I don't know if Kardash didn't spin, I don't know if I would have got him or not. I might have been on the back of him, but who knows what would have happened. But yeah, race 1 was all right, I guess.
How does the cramp feel now? Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm absolutely fine. It was just in that first race.
Fair enough. Yeah, so P2 in the end, and of course the top 3 in the race were the top 3 in the championship. You've had quite a fight with Stevens and Dennehan the whole way through. How do you see your opponents, and do you think this is a rivalry that's going to continue?
I doubt it's going to continue with me staying in FS1 most likely next season, and Tom's, well, yeah, he can't race here for another 2 years. And Jake, I don't know what's going to happen with Jake, but I would love to keep battling with Jake at least, because it's been really fun this whole season. We haven't had as many on-track battles as we probably would have liked, but we kept it clean all the way through, and some good battles.
Fair enough. Unfortunately, we do have to move on to race 2. What happened? We saw the accident.
I just lost it. I tried going around the outside of Menno. I did it so many times in practice on Menno, but yeah, there was just no grip, and then I took too much speed, lost the back end, and I didn't really care after that. There was nothing I could have done in the championship at all, so I just went into this round for a bit of fun. I barely did any practice compared to what I've done earlier in the season. But I completely lost focus after the crash and just kept driving, and then boxed for the fastest lap, and only just got it after making a couple of mistakes on the lap.
Congrats for getting the fastest lap there. Tom, do you have anything to add for Owen McGorgy, second place in the championship?
Well, just to talk about the cramp, Owen, how did you manage to get rid of that? Did you have to do a bit of stretching in the pit stop of the leg, or how did it sort of go on its own?
It just started to go on its own. But it happened in the practice session before, and I didn't drive for like 10 minutes, and that kind of set the mood for what was going to be, I guess. So I knew it was going to happen again, just with how much pressure I was putting on the brake pedal. But I did think about retiring for a couple of laps, and I stayed out, and it sorted itself out.
Well, thank you very much for joining us, Owen, and hopefully you can go one better next year.
Hopefully.
And props to you for finishing both those races. Those were 2 very, very difficult ones.
Cheers.
Okay, so that was no problem, Owen. Thank you. So that was Owen McGorgy there, second in race 1, second in the championship. Unfortunate in race 2 to have that incident with Menno Clon. We are now going to bring in. Let's speak to Chris Butcher, shall we, for the first and only time this season. Chris, usually we have Toby Davis in here representing THR, but we hear you were Tom's race engineer today.
Yeah, Toby was ill tonight, so I got drafted in as a last minute replacement, and it was quite nice sitting on the other side of the fence and sort of just helping Tom and Moritz through the race. It was quite enjoyable, really.
Yeah, of course, you're a driver yourself. Have you done race directing before?
Yeah, I can't remember which round it was, to be honest with you, but Tom and Moritz are that good that they kind of look after themselves and don't really need that much management, really. And obviously for this race, both championships were wrapped up, the pressure was off, and it was just about having fun. So I wouldn't really call it engineering. I was just sort of keeping them updated on gaps and what other people were doing, really. They kind of, Tom and Moritz are pretty good like that, and just ran their own races, really.
Fair enough. That's what we've been hearing from Toby the whole way through this year too. What was it like strategy-wise? Were they apprehensive about the whole 2-stopping in race 1, potentially pitting in race 2 thing, or did they know exactly what they wanted to do and just go for it?
I mean, I came in fairly last minute, so I wasn't really up to date with what they were doing, but I got on with a minute to go before qualifying. Excuse me. And Tom just was like, we're doing a 2-stop, and they were both very confident in that. So yeah, I don't think there was any nerves around that at all, really.
Worked out in the end. Tom Stevens ended up winning yet again in race 1. Unfortunately, race 2 not quite as straightforward. Tom ended up making an unexpected pit stop and losing the lead, and then of course Moritz had his accident. But even so, it feels like a fitting end to the championship to see Tom once again at the top of the podium, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And let's not forget that was a reverse grid race where he started 9th as well. So, even without the pit stop, to finish 2nd is still a fantastic result.
Of
And,
course.
Moritz was really unfortunate. He was pushing hard and just lost it in turn 7, which we've seen quite a lot of people do tonight. Really easy to do there. But it wasn't an unplanned pit stop. Actually, we went aggressive on the strategy, and it nearly worked out. But Tom just got delayed a little bit too much behind Jake, so that kind of stopped the win from happening in race 2. But it was just a case of trying something and going aggressive, and it nearly worked. But everybody had fun tonight. And we're, I know Toby says this a lot, but we're very happy to have Moritz and Tom as part of the Nocturne and THR group, and we feel like we've got a very, very bright future with those guys, and and obviously we have to say thanks to GPVWC for for the fantastic platform, for the 4 career ladder series that we've got, and all of the media team and admins and yourself, Caitlin, for doing the commentary, because without you guys it wouldn't be all of this wouldn't be possible. So I think a big thanks goes out to everybody in the wider GPVWC organisation for putting this on for us all.
Thank you very much. Sorry, thank you all very much. That's very kind of you, and yeah, good job on Tom's race 1 victory yet again.
Thank you.
Indeed. Last but not least, we have Amari Watson here. Amari, how are you? If you're there. He's gone. Let's speak to Josh Downard. Hello, Josh.
Oh. Hello. I was confused a bit there.
No, that's okay. We're all confused. Josh, so you're part of Nova. And Nova finished the season strongly. You are 2nd in the teams championship, is that right?
4th.
What?
Yeah.
Am I that confused today? You are 4th. My goodness, what's going wrong there?
It was it was actually pretty close going into it. I think we're 13 points behind HGP going into that round. Obviously, race 1 was good in terms of beating them by I think like 5 points. Then obviously race 2, not so much, and I mean they both did a great job anyway, so we weren't really going to beat them there, but yeah.
Fair enough. Sorry, I got really confused there, but yeah, you're absolutely right. Okay, well, let's talk about the races themselves then. Owen, spectacular as always. He's quick, isn't he?
Oh yeah, I mean it's well, like I said in the YouTube chat, and I think he said it in his interview, didn't he, that he was not really in the best of of conditions today, but still able to pull out laps in quali when he needs to, and just be mega quick with ease, really. So it's great to have that. So it makes it very easy for me. Unfortunately, obviously race 2 didn't go so well for him, but I think we were sort of going in today, obviously wanting to be HGP in the team, but more as the final round, just sort of wanted to have a bit of fun, I guess, seeing as there wasn't much up for grabs. So it was all right.
Fair enough. Well, you did seem to have some fun in the end. George Whitehouse was having fun out there, wasn't he? I understand that he didn't quite have as much time in that car as, say, Owen did or anything, but I mean, after qualifying to get up to P7 in race 2, not bad.
Yeah, he didn't have much time, so didn't have much practice. But I mean, I know George was a good driver, so obviously quali was a bit tough, but then just sort of fighting his way through. To be honest, I wasn't seeing much of his race because I was just with Owen for the rounds there. But I mean, it looks like he did a good job keeping out of trouble in race 2 at least, to just make his way up the grid. So good stuff.
Indeed. Well, thank you very much for speaking to us, Josh. It's been quite a season for you guys, very up and down. What do you think? Do you have any plans for next year?
Still not fully sure, I'm honest.
Fair enough.
The plan was always to go up to super lights. Just because obviously this is now our second season in FS1, and we've done well in both seasons. So the plan was always to move up, but not so sure at the moment. Owen, I think, he much prefers the sort of FS1 style of racing. Obviously, it helps him a lot with his kind of one lap pace. So
This makes sense.
yeah, so we're not too sure at the moment, but we'll just have to wait and see. To be honest, it sort of depends on drives and sort of where it'll be more fun, I think. But we'll see.
Fair enough. Well, thank you very much for speaking to us, and yeah, congrats on your results.
Thank you.
So that was Josh Downard of Nova Sim Racing. So that'll be it for the day. But thank you very much, Tom Dillon, for jumping in alongside me. I know that you weren't expecting this before Tuesday, but yeah, you seem to have fun today.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. Really like the FS1 style of racing. It's I'll admit it's a bit of a slog to do the basically 3-hour race weekend, but the racing is always enjoyable and nice to round off another season of racing. And just a quick note as well. I know we're keen to get off very quickly, but I believe this is my last GPVWC cast of the season, unless there are people unavailable for SL2 and SL1 next week. But we'll get to that when we get to that. But if it is, then I thank everyone as well for having me for the year. It's been very enjoyable, and I'm looking forward to next year as well now.
Indeed. Thank you, Tom. Also, thank you to Szymon Frelik, the broadcast director for today, who brought you the replays, the show, the sights, the sounds, everything you saw today. And thank you to all of you for watching along. You can do the same next week. We have Super Lights on Tuesday and then Super League on Thursday. It's the final round for both of those. And on the Tuesday race, we have a championship fight still. So we still have one championship up for grabs. There's actually 3 drivers in contention for that, and one of those is our very own broadcast director, Szymon Frelik. So I'm going to be there cheering on, I mean, all 3 drivers, really. Jan, Szymon, Luke, but let's face it, we're all going to be secretly cheering on Szymon. Anyway, we will see you then. For now, it's goodbye.